Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining our webinar today with Hong Kong Academy, Wycombe Abbey, and also Bloom KKCA Academy. Today, the three organizers are WISPA, Concilium Education, and also EBZ. And today's webinar will be conducted in bilingual English and Mandarin. We will first start off with an introduction by Vivian, who is our Mandarin translator, and she would do a quick introduction in terms of the schedule and also each of our organization before we move on to the presentations with the headmasters, starting with Hong Kong Academy. So Vivian, I will pass it to you. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. 大家下午好。欢迎各位来到我们企业伊比斯和 WISPA 一起举办的香港顶尖国际名校网上招生讲座。我是今天的普通话主持人文芳那我是一位普通话的语言学老师。今天呢，我们会主要介绍3所学校，分别是香港学堂、香港威亚学校和百汇九江书院。好，那下一章。那么以下呢，就我们来介绍一下今天的会议流程。首先呢，我们会介绍我们企业伊比斯和 WISPA 2家公司。接下来呢是开幕式，然后呢就是我们3间学校校长的介绍，当中呢有提问的环节，最后呢是家长关心的签证问题的一些解答。那么我们的讲座呢会在5点半前结束。好，下一章。企业伊比斯集团呢致力于实现可持续发展，并且在日常的运作当中，于盈利、人文和环境之间取得平衡。我们在为投资者提供合理回报的同时，竭力照顾环境与社会的需要，肩负社会企业责任。集团的主要业务呢，包括人工智能科技、教育与出版社、健康科学、物业发展、物业投资，业务呢是遍布全球的。企业伊比斯呢，致力于运用科技提升学习体验，激发学习兴趣，培养科学的学习习惯，让全球的学生更快捷地获取优质的教育资源。企业伊比斯一直秉承世界顶尖名校规划之路，伴你起航的服务理念，致力于为全球的家庭提供专业的国际教育咨询服务。我们全面评估学生的综合能力，为其制定个性化的培训计划，提供针对性的课外活动的指导，帮助学生达成梦想。好，下一个。那 WISPA 呢，是我们全港第一个集齐教育和亲子产品的资讯平台。有超过5000间的教育机构及亲子产品的资讯，包括学校、教育中心、升学顾问、游乐场、假日营地、医疗保健、慈善机构以及儿童相关产品和服务等等。好，下一章。那么接下来我们也明谢一下这一次讲座支持得到以下机构的一些支持。OK， 事不宜迟，那接下来呢，我们会介绍我们第一间学校是香港学堂。那么它是一所非牟利的一条龙的学校，为3到18岁的学童提供以学生为本的严谨教育。作为香港仅有8所国际文凭 IB 全面授权的世界名校之一，香港学堂呢提供小学、中学和文凭一条龙的 IB 课程。香港学堂呢为其毕业生提供多项的证书，每一项的证书呢都会支援受全球认可的高等教育。所有毕业生都会获得以学分为基础的香港学堂文凭，以作品集为基础的全球公民文凭证书。超过90%的毕业生修读完整的 IB 文凭或者 IP 课程之后，香港学堂的学生成绩呢持续高于 IB 文凭全球的平均合格率，并且成功被世界各地著名的大学录取。那么今天呢，我们非常荣幸邀请到 Teresa 她是我们香港书院的中学校长。那么呢，他拥有心理学文学学位学士、弗吉尼亚大学教授硕士学位和校长培训中心颁发的国际学校领导证书。作为 IB Educator Network 的成员， Teresa 定期为 IB 课程开发做出贡献。他还担任研讨会负责人和学校访问团队的成员。Teresa 呢体现了他对为全世界做出积极贡献的信念。他是 Compass 教育网络的一员，为学校的教师、领导者和青年制定可持续未来的计划。他还是 Amala 的课程负责人，这是一所为难民学习者提供高中教育机会的全球高中学校。好，那么接下来我把时间交给 Jennifer， 用英文来介绍我们的校长，谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you everyone for joining today. So the first headmaster that we have is Miss Teresa Tung, who is the secondary school principal from Hong Kong Academy. Teresa is the secondary school principal at Hong Kong Academy. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, a Master's of Teaching from the University of Virginia, and a Certificate of International School Leadership from the Principals Training Center. As a member of the IB Educator Network, Teresa contributes regularly to IB curriculum development. She also serves as a workshop leader and school visit team member. Exemplifying her belief in contributing positively to the world, Teresa is a part of the Compass Education Network, developing programs for school teachers, leaders, and youth for a sustainable future. She's also a course leader for Amala, a global high school that provides access to high school education for refugee learners. So now I would like to invite Teresa to please share your slide and start your presentation. Thank you. Yes, Teresa, can you unmute as well?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. 大家好. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry, we're just experiencing a bit of technical difficulty in sharing my screen. So we are just sorting that out. If you'll just be patient with me. Oh, it won't let me share. I have to quit the Zoom. They have the slides? Could I just ask? Okay. I'm having some technical difficulty here with my slide sharing. Would it be all right to ask the current host to share the slides and continue to share from your screen? Is that all right?
Yes, Jeffrey, could we share the slide from Hong Kong Academy, please?
I see it. It's on the screen right now. And in fact, if you go back, is it Jeffrey who's our technical support here? Jeffrey, if you wouldn't mind going back one slide. Thank you so much for that very, very kind introduction to Hong Kong Academy and to me. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Teresa Tung. I am the secondary school principal here at HKA. I joined a beautiful community in 2019 as our secondary school principal. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with all of you as parents looking for the right fit school for your children. It's the most important decision that we make. So it's a real privilege to be here. I'm also so thrilled that Jeffrey has kindly shared the slide with all of you that you've been looking at for a couple of minutes now. This is a photo of my husband and I and our son, Jack. And I put this photo up here, not just because I think my son is super cute, which I hope all of you will agree, but also because, like you, I am a parent. I understand how important it is to invest in our child's future and to make sure that we've got the right fit opportunity for their education. So this is actually a photo of my son, Jack, who was a student in pre-K2 at Hong Kong Academy. And it's his photo from his first day of pre-K last year. But in fact, Jack has been with us at HK since 2, because we actually have a 2-year-old play group that's available for our youngest learners. And when I look at this photo, it just fills me with pride in terms of who we are here at HKA as a community, and not only as a principal, but as a parent, what we offer here at HKA. So Jeffrey, if you'll advance to the next slide for our presentation this afternoon. I'd like to share with you 3 items on our agenda. So first is, who are we at HKA? Second is, what is important in education now for our children now and in the future? As I just shared, I'm a parent, so this is something I think about from all different perspectives. And then third, to share with you how then we do this at Hong Kong Academy. So if we'll go to the next slide, to start with, I'd like to share with you a bit about who we are here at HKA. So on this slide, you'll see this beautiful photo of our community choir, which I think really captures the spirit of who we are here at HKA. HKA was founded over 20 years ago by parents who wanted an education for their children that would reflect our world. And so you can see in this photo that our community is truly diverse, because we believe that children really benefit from learning in classrooms that reflect the world in terms of our international and intercultural backgrounds. So we have students and teachers from over 40 different nationalities and dozens of different languages with no particular dominant culture. We're very, very intercultural. And also in terms of our various learning strengths and differences. We know we all benefit from learning with people who are different from us. We also know that in order to be successful in our world, we have to be able to work together with all sorts of different people. And so that diversity and that inclusion is really central to who we are. On the right-hand side, you'll see our HKA mission statement, which has guided our work since our founding in 2020 and continues to guide our work together today. What this means is that at HKA, we have students coming to us from all different schooling backgrounds, whether it's from other IB schools, local schools, or other international schools offering different national curricula. And this means that we support students who may be transitioning from different systems, including those who may not yet have had English as their main language of instruction. So we do offer an English language learning program to ensure that students can access the curriculum instruction here, which is in English. So go to the next slide. Guided by our mission statement, HK is an education leader. So we think a lot about this question on the screen here. What is important in education for our children now and in the future? Earlier, I shared with you my son, Jack. He's 4 years old, and it will be the year 2036 by the time Jack graduates from secondary school. 2036. I just stop and think about that, and I wonder, what will the world look like then? I ask you to pause for a moment and think about what the world was like when you were 4 years old, and think about what the world is like now. How different is it? Was your education experience, your own, successful in preparing you for the world that we live in today? And as an educator, I think about then, so in schools, how do we make sure that as Jack grows up, he is equipped with the skills, the knowledge, the dispositions to be successful in the year 2036. As an educator, I turn, of course, to research to show what is it that as a school, we here at HKA need to really be emphasizing. So if you look at the next slide, one of our sources that we look at, for example, is the World Economic Forum. They published a comprehensive report in 2020 about the future of education. And they summarize it very well, as you can see on this slide. As globalization and rapid advancements in technology continue to transform our world, education models, schools must equip children to create a more inclusive, cohesive, and productive world. I just asked you to pause and think about how much the world has changed, right? Think about how you might have gone grocery shopping and prepared a meal when you were a child versus now. You might have seen the world change from going to wet markets and supermarkets to now having grocery delivery apps or even daily meal plans that you can get delivered right to your door. I share that as an example because it shows you how different our world is and how different the skills are we all need to be successful in this world. And so in this World Economic Forum report, they give us some insights into what are the key skills our children need in order to be successful now and in the future. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that the top 2 skills out of a list of 8 are number 1, global citizenship skills. So that means including content that focuses on building awareness about the wider world and how we play an active role in the community. And number 2, innovation and creativity skills. That we really develop skills in our learners so that they can be problem solvers, they can be thinkers, they can be creative, because we know the world is constantly changing. So that is the context of how we think about education at HKA. We know as a school that our job is to make sure that our students can be successful now and in the future. So how do we do that? So if you'll move to the next slide, I'd like to share with you our programs and how we develop global citizens and how we help our students to develop these creativity, thinking, analytical skills that will help them to be successful. In the next slide, You'll see, as mentioned in our introduction, that we are a 3-program international baccalaureate IB World School. So throughout the IB programs, there are some commonalities in terms of the ways that we approach teaching and learning. So as mentioned in the introduction, we are one of 8 IB through schools here in Hong Kong. And in fact, we were the first school to be authorized to offer the primary years program because we believe so deeply in this approach to learning as the way that's going to enable our students to be successful now and in the future. So in an IB education, it's very important that students are inquirers and that they're developing their own learning. So when you walk into an HK classroom, whether it's my son Jack's pre-K class or a middle school science class or a high school psychology class, what you will see is students developing questions, researching to find out their own answers, questioning how they find information, and that they have expert teachers there to support their inquiry. And it's also based in understanding big ideas and accessing relevant resources. So what you'll see is students using a mode of different technologies, different resources to conduct their learning. So it's a very dynamic learning experience. So I'd like to share with you a little bit more detail about then what the programs look like here at HKA. So on the next graphic, you'll see that this is our primary years program. As shared in the introduction, we offer the primary years program in our primary school, which is for 3-year-olds until 10-year-olds, from pre-K 1 and 2 all the way through to grade 5. As you can see on the wheel, we offer a holistic and comprehensive program to help develop these skills and these dispositions that I've already described to you earlier as being important in the world. So we have a very robust literacy program. It is very important in our primary years program that students, of course, develop their reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills in English, and also that they are able to be avid communicators and also see themselves as readers and writers. Of course, in the primary years program, we offer mathematics, which is based on helping students to develop mathematical thinking and conceptual understandings. For example, my son, who's 4 years old, is already really developing mathematical thinking skills in terms of the way that he's recognizing mathematical patterns in the world. So it's not just a number of him knowing numbers, but it's really developing those mathematical concepts that's going to help him to continue to develop mathematically throughout the rest of his career. In the primary years program, all of our students also take Mandarin, whether it's as a language that they already have fluency in or as an additional language. So that's a very important part of our primary years program. I'll share a little bit more detail about our Mandarin program on a later slide. You'll see there that there's a wedge about the unit of inquiry. So in the PYP, as I just talked about, it's an inquiry-based model, which means that students are uncovering and discovering their own learning. So through the units of inquiry, students are understanding and developing understanding of things like how we organize ourselves, how the world works. So it's through these integrated units that they're developing their science and humanities skills in the PYP. The next couple of wedges in terms of arts, library, music, and physical education are very important here to us at HKA. And I feel so privileged as a parent that my child at 4 years old gets to go learn these subjects with specialist teachers in specialist classrooms. So for our arts program, we've got a dedicated visual arts studio, and students as young as kindergarten start accessing that space to develop themselves as creative artists. We've got a dedicated library for the primary school, which is a joyful, wonderful place where students go and access reading materials in both English and Mandarin and additional languages, but really very importantly, they're developing their love of reading and developing their identity as readers. In our music program, our students as young as my son in pre-K go to our dedicated music classroom where they learn with a music specialist who's actually a qualified diploma program music teacher, again, to develop themselves as creative thinkers and to develop themselves as musicians. And then with physical education, again, our students go to our dedicated physical education space, to our gyms, to develop their physical activity skills. Social emotional learning is important to us here at HKA. And as a parent, I think it's one of the most important things that we do. Just the other day, my son came home and was talking to me about, oh, today we learned about rainbow breaths. We learned how to use our breath like this, and he made the shape of a rainbow so that when I get in the red zone, when I get upset, I know how to regulate my emotions. I just think that's incredible. We know that in our very complex world, understanding ourselves, understanding our own emotions is a really key part to being able to be successful and resilient. And then global citizenship is a theme that you'll see throughout all of our programs. It's very important that at every age level, our students are developing an understanding of who they are and how they contribute to our world. So in the pre-K classroom, that looks like having different community jobs. It means helping out in our community garden. And then throughout the primary school, it looks like integrating in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals into their units of learning so that they understand that their learning has impact on themselves and also other people and the wider world. So that's our primary years program in a brief introduction. On the next slide, you'll see a lot of information about our secondary school program. So as I mentioned, we are a 3-program IB school. So in grades 6 through 10, so that's for our 11 to 16-year-olds, we offer the IB middle years program. And in the final 2 years, we offer the IB diploma program. So that's grades 11 and 12 for our 16 to 18-year-olds. And uniquely, all of our students graduate our school with the Global Citizen Diploma, which is a high school qualification that they earn starting in grade 9. And they start earning that from grade 9 all the way through to grade 12, which I'll talk about in a little bit more detail on a later slide. If you see this circle, if you start at the top, you'll see that all of our students across MYP and DP take English language. So they take English language and literature. On the next wedge, you'll see that our students also continue to take an additional language. So some of our students opt to continue with their Mandarin program, and we also offer Spanish and French in the secondary school. So some students instead choose to take Spanish or French as their additional language. You'll see we offer individuals and societies. So in the middle years program, all of our students take this course, which is a integrated or combined humanities course so that they can really understand the world. In the diploma program, they can choose a specialty. So they can choose to study economics, history, or psychology within individuals and societies. And in the final 2 years, they can start to specialize. So they might decide to take 2, for example, of those subjects. In the sciences in the middle years program, grades 6 through 10, it's again an integrated science. So students are learning to be scientists. They're conducting experiments in our purpose-built laboratories. For example, right now, our grade 8 students are doing data analysis of color blindness and really developing their data skills in science. In grades 11 and 12, students can then specialize in the science that they want to take. So we offer biology, chemistry, physics, environmental systems and societies, as well as sports science and design technology. So you can see there's a lot of choice there. And again, in the final 2 years, students may decide to take, for example, 2 sciences or 1 science, depending on their post-secondary pathway. All of our students take mathematics. Mathematics is an integrated program in the middle years program. So what that means is that they're studying statistics, geometry, algebra, all of these different mathematical threads every single year in the middle years program, and it's integrated. In the final 2 years in the diploma program, students can choose from 2 different mathematics courses, one which is an applied mathematics course and one which is a theoretical mathematics course. In the arts, all of our students in the middle years program take a combination of performing arts, so that's theater and music, as well as visual arts. And again, they have access to dedicated specialist spaces in order to develop in their arts. In the diploma program, our students then get a choice of the arts that they would want to take. Physical and health education is a course that all of our students take from grade 6 all the way through to grade 12. We believe it's very, very important that students are developing physically as well as mentally and emotionally and academically across all of their years. All of our students in the middle years program also take design, which is a project-based class where students get to choose a client or a problem that they want to solve, and they go through a design cycle to create products and solutions, whether it's through our dedicated product design studio, through our textile studio, or in graphic and media design. You can see there we also have HK Wellbeing, which is like earlier when I showed you in the PYP, that social emotional learning, that continues in the secondary school. All of our students have an advisor. They also have counselors who support them with continuing to develop those social and emotional self-regulation strategies that I described a little bit earlier in our PYP program. You can also see their HKA Flex. Through our middle years program, all of our students have time built into their schedule to be developing their own learning schedule and developing their own projects. It's very important when we think about that question I asked earlier about how do we best prepare our students for the future, that they can be independent, that they can develop independent learning skills. And if we never give them an opportunity to make choices until much later in school, they won't be able to develop these skills. So HK Flex is a program in which students develop their own projects and design their own learning schedules to take ownership of their time and learning. HK Core is a course that happens in grades 11 and 12, where students who are doing the full IB diploma program are taking a course called Theory of Knowledge, and also working on other core components such as the extended essay, which is a 4,000-word academic essay, alongside with developing the Global Citizen Diploma. And so you can see there's HKA Core and IBDP Core, which work together depending on the courses that the students are taking. That gives you a very broad overview of our program, all the way from the PYP through the MYP and DP. And what's really wonderful about HK is that because we are a through IB school, we see students developing these skills all the way through. So I know my son Jack at 4 years old is developing skills and ideas that's going to help him to be successful as he moves through our school. On the next slide, I would just like to highlight a little bit more information about our language pathways. So if we could advance to the next slide. Okay, so this is a photo of some of our students partaking in some Chinese calligraphy. So I just wanted to take a moment to highlight, I mentioned it when we looked at the programs, but I wanted to highlight our language pathways. So expression through more than one language is a fundamental part of our HK program. It's really important, if we think about developing global citizens, that our students have an interest and a desire to communicate in more than one language, and that they recognize the importance of being able to communicate in multiple languages. So English, again, is a language of instruction across the school, and each child's unique language profile is used to nurture their love for reading, writing, speaking, and listening in both English and their additional language. In HK's Mandarin curriculum program, we provide instruction for students at all levels of proficiency. So in pre-K, so in, for example, my son's class, each homeroom has a fully qualified Mandarin co-teacher who infuses Mandarin into that classroom experience. My family is from Taiwan, and I try to use Mandarin at home as much as possible with my son, my husband in English, so we're a mixed language family. So when Jack goes to pre-K, he has an English-speaking homeroom teacher as well as a Mandarin co-teacher. So Wang Laoshi will sometimes deliver the morning circle meetings to all of the students, and then sometimes it's Miss Stephanie. So it's an infusion in the classroom. In kindergarten through grade 5, Mandarin is taught as a specialist subject. So there's dedicated time in the week when students are taking a Mandarin class, as well as a Mandarin co-teacher who is there to support the learning while the instruction is being given in English, to interact with students to develop their Mandarin skills and vocabulary as well. As I mentioned earlier, in the secondary school, students can continue with Mandarin or they can opt to take Spanish or French. In the final 2 years, for students who are academically proficient in Mandarin and can study it at a Mandarin A or native level, then they may choose to take Mandarin A and earn the full IBDP bilingual diploma in Mandarin. Because we're a very international community, we've also had students earn the bilingual diploma in English and Russian, English and Swedish. Currently, we have a student sitting in English and Spanish. So we really value the study of language across many, many different areas. On the next slide, you'll see our recent graduation class of 2022 results in the IB diploma program. So we're really, really proud of our students' academic achievements across all of the different students that we have here at HKA. As I mentioned at the start, we're an inclusive school. In some schools, the IBDP is a highly selective program where only certain students are allowed to take the program. That's not the case here at HKA. We believe in nurturing the potential of each individual student. So if the IBDP is the right pathway for them and they have a desire to do it, then we support them to access the IBDP. So with this inclusive model, and with the fact that for the class of 2022, they had 3 years of their high school learning disrupted due to COVID-19. Here in Hong Kong, we were online, in person, online and in person several times. We are very, very proud of the statistics that you can see on the screen, because as you can see, we are of course above world average in terms of our average scores, but more importantly, we have a real breadth and range of the different academic results that our students have achieved. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that, as mentioned in the introduction, our graduates matriculate to universities all around the world. We are a community school and a very diverse school. So every year we see students going to a range of institutions around the world geographically, and they also study a range of different courses for their post-secondary pathway. If you'll go to the next slide, you'll see a sampling of some of our recent university acceptances, just to highlight again the diversity of what our students go on to do. So they may go on to more technical colleges to pursue a particular career. They may go on to a liberal arts university in North America. They may go on to study particular courses in the United Kingdom. And we're equally proud of all of our graduates, no matter what they choose to do after secondary school. And we really value that individualized support to help them get there. So in order to support our students in getting to these post-secondary institutions, on the next slide, you'll see the credentials that our students earn at the end of their journey here at HKA. So all of our students graduate HK with a high school diploma. So that is a credential that recognizes their academic achievements in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. And that's often used for North American university admissions, so in America or in Canada. In addition, I mentioned earlier the Global Citizen Diploma, which is a credential that we are the only school to offer here in Hong Kong. And in fact, we're the host of the global consortium of the Global Citizen Diploma, which I'll speak about in a little bit more detail on the next slide. So all of our students graduate with the HK diploma and the GCD certificate. In addition, over 90% of our students opt to take IB courses in their final 2 years. So they also graduate with an externally validated IB certificate or IB diploma, depending on the courses that they choose. So if you go to the next slide, I'd just like to take a moment to speak a little bit more about the Global Citizen Diploma. I started my presentation with talking about my son and about the world that he's going to enter in 2036, and that World Economic Forum report that tells us how important developing global citizenship skills is as our world continues to become more globalized and as technology continues to advance and change the way that we live and work. And it is for that reason that HK has chosen to be the host of the GCD. The GCD is a credential that students earn by curating a portfolio to demonstrate who they are as global citizens. If you look at a traditional high school transcript, it will tell you mathematics class earned a 5, English class earned a 7, science class earned a 6, or whatever it might be. But it doesn't tell the whole story of the student. So the GCD is a portfolio so students can really tell their story because they are so much more than numbers. Caitlin, who is the young woman on the screen, is so much more than what she earned for those academic class grades. And so this portfolio allows her to tell her story of who she is as a global citizen. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen the way we define a global citizen. It's somebody who acts with a commitment to understanding others, that's their heart. Somebody who has an awareness and understanding of how they affect others, that's their head, their understanding. And somebody who holds themselves accountable and acts responsibly. So that's their hands, that's the doing. So on the next slide, you'll see more of the components that form the Global Citizen Diploma. So on the left-hand side is the community engagement, global understanding, intercultural communication. That's the head, hand, and heart. And then our students choose the other aspects of the GCD that they want to put into their portfolio to highlight the unique ways that they contribute. So some of our students might really contribute through their management skills. Others might really contribute through wilderness engagement. So this portfolio allows our students to really distinguish themselves and tell their stories about who they are.
Sorry, Teresa, as we're conscious of time, just 2 more minutes left. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So on the final couple of slides, the next is just a story of one of our current students. So I won't read through the information here in the interest of time, but this is just an example of one student whose interests were nurturing as he goes through our school. There's a link to an article if you'd like to learn more about Sharia. And then on to the next slide. What we really would invite you to do, I know some of you are joining us from Shenzhen and others from around Hong Kong, is to come out and visit us if you're available. We're located, this is a drone shot of our school in beautiful Sai Kung in the New Territories of Hong Kong. About 50% of our students arrive by school bus, so we do have students coming to us from all around Hong Kong. And for those of you unable to come visit us on campus, we invite you to contact our admissions team for a virtual consultation. So final slide, I believe, is yes, we really hope to see you on our campus to be able to have a tour or have a virtual consultation. The QR code on the screen, I invite you to scan. It will take you to our Chinese language website, which can give you a lot more information about our school and our programs. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share about HKA as a parent and as an educator. And I hope to have the opportunity to meet some of you through our virtual or in-person consultations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Teresa Tung, for the in-depth presentation on Hong Kong Academy. Now we shall move on to the Q&A session. Starting off with the first question I have for Ms. Teresa. I understand that Hong Kong Academy has an assessment policy which is quite in-depth with dates and deadlines for student assessments and reporting throughout their years at HKA. Can you please tell us about the admission process and selection at HKA? Will you give priority to families coming from China with Chinese passport? What if my child's English fluency is not very strong? Are there any bridging programs to help my child in school to get up to speed with the school's main curriculum? So I invite you to answer the question, and then we will have Vivian translate both question and answer into Mandarin.
Okay, thank you. So there's a couple of questions in there. So the first is our assessment policy. We have a published assessment policy. Our parents also have access to an ongoing communication platform, so they know the grades that students are earning and the assessments that are coming up and the feedback about how to improve. And then we issue report cards in January and June as a summary of how the students are doing. We do have a natural time when students tend to join in January and June because of the semesters, but we have a rolling admissions process. So we accept applications all year round, and we place students as soon as spaces become available. And we also accept applications up to 1 year in advance of when the student might join us. So our admissions team work closely with families on a case-by-case basis in terms of what your timeline might be. We don't give priority to a particular national passport. We give priority to siblings, to families who apply for all eligible children, to previously enrolled students, and to students who might bring diversity to our dynamic learning community in terms of nationality, religion, family blend, etc. And then also we really prioritize families who embrace our mission and our curricular offerings. And then finally, yes, as I mentioned earlier, we do offer an English language learning program. We're part of the WIDA consortium, so we do an assessment in order to determine the level of English proficiency for the student so that we can get the right supports in place to help them be successful.
Great, thank you. Vivian, would you please do the translation Mandarin? Thank you.
OK， 谢谢啊。感谢 Jennifer 和 Teresa 介绍了我们的学校的情况。那么刚刚完成了我们第一个问题的提问和解答。那题目是这样的，我们了解到香港学堂的评估政策呢是非常详细的，其中呢包含学生在香港学堂期间进行评估和报告的日期和截止日期。是否请您介绍一下香港学堂的录取通知的流程和选拔呢？你会优先考虑来自中国并且持有中国护照的家庭吗？如果我的孩子的英文流利程度不是很高，那怎么办？是否有任何衔接的课程可以帮助到我的孩子跟上学校的主要课程？Teresa 的回答是这样的，学校呢会有一个公布的评估政策，有一个网站的。那上面呢解释了我们围绕评估的信念和实践。对于我们来说非常重要的是，评估呢不仅仅是学生获得成绩的最终目标，而且评估和报告的过程呢是支持我们学习的，以便于学生和家长呢始终知道孩子们在学习什么，他们是怎么样学习的，以及是怎么样持续的去改进。那我们一个学年有2个学期，每个学期末呢就是有一个学期的进度的报告。那这是学生加入 HKA 就是香港学堂的这个自然过渡的时间，但是我们也有这个滚动录取的程序的。香港学堂呢全年是接受申请的，并且在有空位的时候呢会安排新生。那么我们在孩子预计入学前1年呢会接受申请。那我们的招生呢团队呢会单独的去查看每一个的申请，而且会经常根据具体的情况和家庭进行一个合作。那么对于优先的考虑呢，会考虑以下，第一个呢是兄弟姐妹，第二个呢是申请所有符合条件的孩子的家庭，第三个呢是以前注册过的学生，第四个呢是具有不同国籍、种族、宗教、年龄、家庭融合学习方式以及需求，以及不同性别的学生，第5个呢就是拥有我们学校的理念、核心价值观和课程的家庭。那么我们在小学和中学的时候都提供我们这个英语语言学习的课程。因为我们是WIDA 的联盟的成员，那这个联盟呢是专门帮助来自非英语背景和学校的学生去发展他们的社交和学术语言的技能。学生呢沉浸在主流课程和学校的英语环境当中，同时呢也可以接触我们这个英语语言学习的课程。好，那么接下来的时间交给 Jennifer 进行我们第2个问题，谢谢。
Thank you very much, Vivian. And Ms. Teresa, we'll move on to the second question here. Basically, with HKA, I know it's not a bilingual school, but it does offer language options to students pursuing the IB diploma. So currently, with China as a rising power economy, a lot of parents in Hong Kong and even the expat community put a lot of emphasis on getting children learning Mandarin and being fluent in this language. Can you please tell us more about the Mandarin program at HKA? What percentage of the students' curriculum is spent on reading, writing, and speaking Mandarin? Also, is IB English Chinese bilingual diploma offered to students who wish to pursue this? Is there any support for the students, or is this something they have to do like private tutoring externally?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we do know Mandarin is very important. And while we are not a bilingual school, as you heard in the presentation, this idea of learning an additional language and being an intercultural communicator is very, very important to us at the school. In the PYP, in the primary years, the additional language is Mandarin for all of our learners. And as I mentioned earlier, in the secondary school, students can choose to continue with Mandarin. They may opt to take Spanish instead. As I mentioned earlier, in the primary school, there's a co-teacher who's a fully qualified Mandarin speaking educator who mirrors the concepts and learning in Mandarin throughout the day. And then starting in kindergarten all the way through grade 5, Mandarin is taught as a specialist subject for 200 minutes a week and is, as I mentioned before, infused in the classroom by this Mandarin speaking co-teacher for an additional 400 minutes a week. In the secondary school, there are sort of 2 tracks for Mandarin. So we offer the IB MYP language and literature course for those who are already proficient in Mandarin, or we offer the IB MYP language B or language acquisition course. And depending on which course and the student's language proficiency in Mandarin, the objectives are different and the percent of time to reading, speaking, writing, and listening is a little bit different. So for those who are fluent in Mandarin, for the Mandarin A or language and literature course, there's 4 criteria that the students are studying. So they're learning to analyze the language, to organize their writing and speaking and listening in the language, to produce text and to use the language. So it's much more of an analysis focused course. For those who are acquiring Mandarin, learning it as a language, then there's 4 objectives, but it's comprehending spoken and visual text. So that's understanding, that's the reading and the listening, comprehending comprehending written and visual text, communicating in response to spoken and or written and or visual text, and using language in spoken or written form. So the curriculum is designed not by percentage, but by these course objectives. In the DP, students can continue to take Mandarin, again, either as an A language where they're already proficient, or a B language. And if they take it as an A language, that means that they will earn the bilingual IB diploma. And as I mentioned earlier, we've had students who have earned that credential in Mandarin as well as in other languages.
Got it. Thank you very much. Vivian would like to invite you to summarize the question and answers in Mandarin. Thank you.
OK 谢谢 Teresa。那我们刚刚第2个问题呢，就是香港学堂呢不是一所双语的学校，但是它确实为攻读 IB 文凭的学生呢提供了语言的选择。目前呢，随着中国经济的崛起，很多的香港父母甚至外籍人士呢都非常重视孩子学习普通话，并且流利使用这种语言。你能够告诉我们更多关于香港学堂的普通话课程吗？学生课程当中有多少多少的时间是花费在这个阅读、写作和说普通话上面的？还有 IB 英语、中文双语文凭是否提供给希望学习这方面的学生呢？是否提供或学生是否需要在外面进行这个私人的补习？Teresa 的回答是这样的：当然，普通话真的是非常重要。虽然呢，我们不是一所双语的学校，但是我们在演讲当中听到的，我们成为全国公民和跨文化交流的想法对我们来说是非常重要的。除了英语之外，所有的学生在整个学校呢都会学习一门语言。在 PYP 小学的课程当中呢，所有的学生的附加语言呢就是普通话。然后在中学，学生呢是可以选择西班牙语而不是普通话。那么1周的时间呢，我们大概有2000分钟的时间去学习这个普通话的。那在小学、在中学，普通话的课程呢是遵循了IB MYP 就是中学的这个语言和文学的目标，就是为了已经很流利的这些学生呢，他们学习普通话，并且将普通话作为学术语言来进行学习的，或者是遵循我们这个中学语言 B 或者是语言学习的这个目标。那对于一些普通话已经非常流利的学生来说呢，那语言和文学的他们的学习目标呢，就是进行分析语言的组织、生成文本，就是写文章，或者是使用我们这个语言。那么对于仍在学习普通话或者是其他语言的一些学生，他们的目标呢就包括以下几个，一个呢是理解口语和视觉的文本，一个呢是理解书面语和视觉的文本，还有呢是根据口头或者是书面或者是视觉文本进行交流。那最后呢就是使用口头或者是书面的语言的形式进行交流。 那么这样一直持续到11年级和12年级的第一批呢，到时候呢，学生呢就可以继续将普通话作为语言 A 或者是语言 B 来学习。那如果他们把它当成是语言 A 来学习的话呢，那么他们将会获得 IB 双语文凭。每年呢，我们都有学生是获得这个双语文凭的，无论是普通话和英语，还是其他的语言啊。例如说，我们今年有一个学生是获得了双语文凭，因为他正在学习这个俄语和英语。我们非常致力于这个国际化，并且支持学生继续学习他们的母语，尤其是普通话。对于想要在语言和文学或者文学水平学习普通话以获得双语文凭的学生呢，这是我们香港学堂的授课课程，所以的话呢，不需要进行这个外部的辅导了。好了 ，Jennifer， 现在时间交给你进行第3个提问，谢谢。
Great, thank you, Vivian. So I'm very conscious of time right now. So Teresa, just a very quick last question, a short answer if you can help provide that. The last question, what in your view are the biggest 3 achievements that a child can take away with the experience growing up at HKA? How do you think students are best prepared for a global citizen or the future workforce?
Thank you, Jennifer. So I think I answered a lot of that, hopefully, in the presentation. Yes. But to sum it up, I think 3 sort of keywords. First, students learn to be independent, right? They learn to be independent learners and independent citizens now and in the future. Second is self-regulation. You know, earlier I gave the example of the rainbow breaths. We know our world is complicated, so they learn how to understand themselves, understand their emotions, and understand how to self-regulate in our very stressful world. And then the third is that they get to know themselves. Each of us is different. Each of our children is different. So from their experience at HK, they get to unlock who they are, not who we want them to be, and they really get to know what's important for each of them themselves.
Great. Thank you so much, Teresa. I will invite Vivian to do a translation in Mandarin for question and answer.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. 第3个问题呢，就是在您看来，孩子在香港学堂的成长经历当中，最大的3个成就是什么呢？那你认为我们的学生如何为未来做好一个世界公民做好准备呢？Teresa 的回答是这样的：香港学堂呢有3个特点，第一个呢是独立，因为呢我们让孩子学会了怎么样去学习，让他们在将来有能力在大学和工作的领域作为这个世界公民获得成功因为他们是掌握了我们所说的这个学习方法的技能。第二个呢就是自我调节我们是非常重视孩子教育整个孩子，而不是仅仅是学术方面包括我们教育孩子怎么样去识别自己的压力释放自己的情绪和自我调节的能力，因为世界真的是非常的复杂，这些的能力是非常的重要的。第3个呢就是认识自己作为一个在社区当中的一个学习，我们认为每个学生都是不一样的，我们应该是关注到每个学生的他的兴趣、技能等等，让他们成为真正一名全球的公民OK， 好，那以上呢是非常感谢 Teresa 的这个回答接下来时间交给 Jennifer。
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for joining our webinar today, and thank you for the wonderful presentation. So I would, if we have more questions coming from parents, we will send it over to you at HKA. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you. Thank you, Shisha Vivian. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So now moving on to our second presentation, that will be by Wycombe Abbey, Mr. Howard Tuckett.
OK， 好，那我们接下来第2间学校是香港威亚学校。那香港威亚学校呢是为5到13岁的孩子提供典型的英式预科教育服务。在英国威亚学校优良传统及卓越学术的基础上，香港威亚学校的课程呢是根据像英国国家课程标准来制定的，包括强化英语课程、优秀的中国语言和文化课程，以及寄宿和中学的指导计划。那我们今天的主讲嘉宾呢是 Mr. Howard Tuckett， 那他是一位初级的专家我们可以下一张 slide。 拥有教师、管家、体育教练和校长的经验，他拥有教育文凭和硕士学位，拥有超过38年的教育经验，其中21年曾经是担任英国预科学校的校长。Mr. Howard Tuckett 曾担任联合学习小组14位预科学校校长的协调员和 ISI 学校的督学，他还曾担任2所独立学校的州长，并且担任IAPS Heads 培训课程的主任和演讲师。Mr. Howard Tuckett 在2019年移居香港，担任香港威亚学校的创始校长。 他已婚有2个孩子。好，时间交给 Jennifer， 谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. We'd like to introduce Mr. Howard Tuckett, who is the headmaster of Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong. Mr. Tuckett is a primary specialist with experience as a teacher, housemaster, sports coach, and headmaster. With a diploma and master's in education, he has over 38 years of experience as an educationalist. 21 of those years have been served as a headmaster at British prep schools. Mr. Tuckett has served as the coordinator of the 14 prep school heads in the United Learning Group and as an ISI school inspector. Mr. Tuckett has worked as a governor of 2 independent schools and has served as an IAPS Heads Training Course Director and Speaker. Mr. Tuckett moved to Hong Kong in 2019 to assume the role of founding headmaster of Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong. He is married with 2 children. I'd like to welcome Mr. Howard Tuckett to share your presentation slides and start the presentation. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everybody. I just can't see where I can share my slides from. Do I get
on the bottom of the Zoom, you see the share screen, the green button?
No.
Not to worry, we have your slides here. Maybe you can prompt us to flip the slides. That's okay as well.
Thank you. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Okay, so that actually is the first slide. It's the same one you've just been showing.
Okay, okay.
All right, so yeah, thank you very much, everybody. That's I think we've probably covered that one. So the whole reason for me being invited to found this school was because I've been in prep schools for most of my working life. And the whole purpose of Wycombe Abbey School in Hong Kong is to provide Hong Kong with its own British prep school. And as part of that project, we purposely didn't license the school as an international school. It's licensed in Hong Kong with the EDB as a private school. And that means that we don't have a passport quota. So this school is open to anybody to come to in Hong Kong. It's not just for expatriates with a small quota for local children. It is for all children in Hong Kong, whether they're expatriate, local, or as long as they can legally be in Hong Kong, they can come to our school. And the idea of the school is that we brought a British prep school to Hong Kong for all Hong Kongers so that we can provide the very best in the British style of prep school, the very great prep schools, the types of schools I've worked in that feed into the Eatons and the Harrows and the Wellingtons and Westminster School, Wycombe Abbey, Cheltenham Ladies College, that we've brought that model of prep school over to Hong Kong, that children can come to this kind of school right here in Hong Kong, whether they're being prepared to go to schools, secondary schools in Hong Kong, of which we have many excellent schools, as we all know, and we just heard from one of them, or whether they're going to want to go to British or American or Australian boarding schools. The whole point is that this prep school can offer all children in Hong Kong that preparation, academic preparation, holistic whole person preparation, pastoral preparation for life as a boarder or as a day pupil, either here in Hong Kong or anywhere else in the world. Thank you. Next slide, please. So our deputy head is always going to be the head of Chinese. We take the teaching of Chinese very seriously, and a little bit more about that later. Fei Fei Yang is our current deputy head. She trained and qualified as a teacher in Britain, although she's from Chinese mainland, and has taught in international schools around the world before joining us here. And as well as being deputy head academic of the school, she also heads up the quite large Chinese department. And as you'll see, we give an awful lot of our resources and time to the teaching of Putonghua with simplified characters, but we teach it separately. We don't teach any kind of bilingual system. The language of instruction of the school is English for all of the subjects except Chinese, where Putonghua is spoken by the Chinese teaching teams. Thank you very much. So a word about Wycombe Abbey schools. Top left there, you can see the original school, which is in the town of High Wycombe in England. High Wycombe is about halfway between London and Oxford. So heading out of London, about 10 o'clock on the map, about halfway to Oxford, you go past the turning to the town of High Wycombe, and Wycombe Abbey is just there. So just on the very outskirts of London, in the area that we would know, that ring around London, we would know as the home counties. And then to the right is our current school where we are. That's our campus in just outside Aberdeen. You can see the tower, the apartment towers in Aberdeen there. We're in a little area called Tinwan on the Pok Fulam side of Aberdeen. At the bottom on the left-hand side, you can see Wycombe Abbey Changzhou, Wycombe Abbey Nanjing, and Wycombe Abbey Hangzhou. These are three massive campuses, day and boarding, and they are all co-ed. They start at kindergarten, they go right through to 18-year-old sixth formers. The original girls' school, Wycombe Abbey, is a girls' school. It's about 90% boarding. Our school here in Hong Kong, as I've said, is a primary prep school. It's a day school. The three schools in mainland China have primary and secondary, and their day and boarding as well. And you can see the dates where they all opened. And Wycombe Abbey indeed is looking to expand across the Southeast Asian region. And we look forward to making announcements quite shortly about other Wycombe Abbeys that will be opening in the next few years. Thank you very much. So we teach 14 subjects. As you can see here, our daily pattern is 9 lessons a day, followed by 2 1-hour special extracurricular activity sessions. So a very full teaching day. Our school day starts at 8 in the morning, 9 lessons, and then at 3 o'clock we start our 2 1 hours. In fact, there's a thunder of feet going past my office. The rock climbing club are just going through. They've just come from skateboarding and they're going through to do some rock climbing now, and they'll be finishing at 5 o'clock. So a very full day. We've been able to teach full days through most of the COVID time simply because we have a dedicated dining room that isn't used for anything else. We don't need to have children eating in their classrooms. And so our quite extensive campus here allows us a dining room that is completely dedicated, doesn't get used for anything else. And we still have lots of indoor space and lots of outdoor space as well. Thank you very much. So these are the subjects we teach. They're all the subjects that you would find. Our curriculum is the national curriculum for England and Wales. The only difference is that we teach Mandarin. In England, of course, a prep school would be teaching probably French, possibly Spanish. Here we're teaching Putonghua with simplified characters. The only difference is that we give our Chinese teaching the same amount of time that we give to English. So we teach 7 periods of English a week, we teach 7 periods of Mandarin a week, and then about the same of maths. So actually almost half the week is taken up with English, Chinese and maths, fairly evenly divided. And then the other 11 subjects share the other half of the week in terms of time allocation. Thank you. Yeah, so our Chinese curriculum is drawn from a mainland curriculum. It's taught by Chinese Mandarin specialists. We pump 2 of them into every class. Every class is divided into what are known as native speaking ability children and non-native speaking ability children. We did not assess Mandarin capability for entry to the school. Children can pick it up at whatever level they are when they join the school. But once they've joined the school, they do move along quite quickly at their appropriate rate. And because we invest so much time in the teaching of Mandarin, just as we do for English, we find that they come along pretty much. That our assessment is by various measures that our children are progressing pretty much at the same rate as children in Hong Kong would at their government schools if they were learning Mandarin. Thank you very much. Our after-school activities I talked about just now. This is a sample of some of our 60 or so clubs and activities that run after schools through each week. We run 10 weeks of activities in each term. And this will be a typical offering for one term. And as you can see, there aren't quite 60 here, but at next term, we would probably add another 10 in and move some of these out. So we're constantly rotating what's on offer for children to participate in. Thank you very much. We teach English to children who have no English. So if, although we're an English-speaking school, it doesn't matter if children have very little English or no English at all. We run an intensive English program. We have a dedicated teacher. We have dedicated classrooms. And our experience is that after about 6 months of being in our intensive English program, children are then able to join their own classes pretty much full time. and the teacher, instead of teaching them directly, then transfers to a supportive role, supporting the children in class. But we find it takes about 6 months for children to pick up enough conversational English they can access what's going on in the classroom, and then of course we can support from there. Very often children who are under the intensive English program are from mainland China, but they don't have to be. Indeed, the very first 2 children we ran through this program 2 years ago were German Swiss, so they spoke German in the Swiss style. So it doesn't really matter where children come from, the induction into English will be treated pretty much the same way. Thank you. Our staff are all trained in the British style. Many of them are from the United Kingdom. Some are from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, the United States. Some of the states in the United States are very similar to the British style of teaching. Other states aren't, so it's a bit of a mixed bag from the United States. And you can see some of our universities are there. You can imagine with such a crowd of teachers, things like the Hong Kong Sevens and the Rugby World Cup is fairly hotly contested in the staff room. But the critical thing is that we are all trained in the British model. So what we've done, ladies and gentlemen, is we've brought a British prep school with a typical British teaching staff, such as you would find in a British prep school, to Hong Kong for Hong Kongers to be able to prepare them for whatever kind of secondary education parents are aiming for, whether that's here in Hong Kong, possibly going back to government schools, going to an international school in Hong Kong, possibly moving out into the ESF group of schools, or going abroad. And indeed, at the moment, we actually have 47 applications out to British independent schools for boarding schools. Last year, 30 offers to, I think it was 28 children, and all 28 had several offers. Sorry, 21 children, 30 offers. All children were placed in Great British independent schools. And we'd be very happy to talk that model through with you if that's what you're interested in. Children can leave us at 11 and move on to secondary schools in Hong Kong at 11 in the normal way, as you would at primary school, or stay with us till 13. And the reason for offering the 13+ model is that many boarding schools in the UK, although they might have day provision before that, they normally only start boarding at 13, as that's the age when children can best access that kind of life. Thank you. So a little bit more about that. Our curriculum is the national curriculum for England and Wales. I wrote it, and when I did, I integrated it with the Hong Kong primary EDB curriculum, and also, as you see here, the ISEB's common entrance curriculum. They're all pretty similar curricula. ISEB is national curriculum for England and Wales, but it just goes deeper and further. It's a richer quality, if you like. It's a richer and enriched version of the national curriculum. Hong Kong, of course, having a very close history with the UK, the curriculum here is very similar. Primary education is primary education, really, isn't it? But what we have is a British education model that is culturally relevant to Hong Kong. And this is all about how we support children. And this particular picture is Lancing College, just outside Brighton, as it happens. And one of the schools that children from here apply to. And in fact, 2 of our girls got to the other school in Brighton last year. They went to Rodine, which is at the other end of Brighton. Thank you very much. And here is a map of where children from the school, bearing in mind the school is only 3 years old, and in the first year we only went to year 5. So we're only talking really about the last 2 academic years. And here are some of the schools that we have fed children into. They've had to apply to these schools, they've had to compete for their places, they've had to write examinations, beat off other applicants, they've had to go through interviews, and we're very proud. And this tells me, as the head of this school, that the level of education, the quality of education at this Wycombe Abbey school in Hong Kong is as good as any independent prep school in the United Kingdom. And we know that because we're winning the places and we're competing with all those great prep schools in the United Kingdom, and we're winning the places that are there. Thank you very much. So if you're interested in joining us at Wycombe Abbey, application to the school is very easy. We've got the easy to click on QR codes. You make an appointment, we will book you in for a tour. We will, if you like what you see and you'd like to continue, we then, thank you very much. Next slide, please. We will then arrange for your child to come in for an assessment. And all being well, we will offer the place. We are a new school, we're a growing school. So at the moment we have a rolling entry. We're looking to fill, we're filling the final classes now in each year group. Of course, COVID has slowed the growth of all schools down. So we've never, our numbers have continued to grow through COVID. But like everyone else, the rate of growth has slowed down a bit. But we're still going very well. We've had 2 children start this week, as it happens. And there are more coming round. 4 have been assessed today, and 2 of those will be starting next week as well. The other 2 will be starting next academic year. Next academic year is looking very good. So it's very encouraging. When I came to Hong Kong, I couldn't believe how complicated it appears to be to get into a school. It really doesn't need to be complicated. The decision is a simple one. And the decision is it morally right to offer this child a place at this school? Can we expect them to flourish? And if the answer to that is yes, we'll offer the place. It's really easy. We don't put parents through in-depth interviews. We don't put children through mind-numbingly difficult situations, or try to. We try to de-stress the entry in the application as far as we can. Thank you. And the final slide, which I think is a request. Oh, there we are. So Kerry Morris is our admissions manager. She'd be very pleased to hear from you. And there are the contact details. And then I believe the next slide is whether you have any questions.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tuckett. Thank you, Howard, for the insightful presentation. Very impressive growth in just shortly 3 years, and amazing admissions for schools into the UK. So we will move on to the Q&A session right now. I'll go through the question, and Vivian will then translate into Mandarin. First question I have, a lot of people, in fact, it becomes a recurring question, especially those parents with girls, always tend to ask if my child... I know
what this question is going to be. Yeah.
That's right. The question keeps coming up. If my child is enrolled with Wycombe Abbey, Hong Kong, does that mean her chances of getting into Wycombe Abbey UK boarding school will be higher? As it is coming from the sister school, the curriculum is the best fit. Also, we understand getting into top boarding schools in the UK can be very competitive. I know there are no guarantees. So how would you respond to this?
Yeah, thank you. 2 parts to that question. There are no guaranteed places for girls here into Wycombe Abbey School in the United Kingdom. However, having said that, 3 girls so far have applied to Wycombe Abbey in England, and all 3 are now at Wycombe Abbey in England. So if it's right for the girl, you have to remember, it's a really important point. Wycombe Abbey in England and Cheltenham Ladies College are the 2 top academic schools for girls in England. In fact, they're probably in the top 3 or 4 schools academically year on year on year. Therefore, it wouldn't be kind for every child to go there. In fact, it would be quite destructive. And for that reason, for the safety of the child, as I said just now, it's a moral decision. It would not be morally right to try and force every girl we have into that school. They would just have a miserable experience. There are plenty of other schools that are all excellent, that have broader ranges, more specific ranges. And there is particularly girls' schools. There are many, many more girls' schools than there are boys' schools. So for the girls, you are absolutely spoiled for choice. Wycombe Abbey, Cheltenham Ladies College, the top 2 academic schools, not for everybody. Joe Duncan, the head, and I have talked over this point often. We are absolutely clear. If I think it's right for one of our girls, I will advise our parents, and I'll be right behind her. And we know that our very bright girls, they've won their places fair and square, and 2 of them have been offered places at Cheltenham Ladies College as well. So we know where our teaching level, our curriculum is right, if it's right for the child. The other part of your question is, how do we then, given that you've sort of got one shot at getting into schools and you want to get into one of the schools you want to apply to, is that we construct our approach to entering schools around the child. It's no good picking 5 names that are famous, or 5 names that sound like they'd be nice places to go, or even 5 schools that have got cool websites. They've all got cool websites. What we've got to do is, it's what I call the Freddiness of Freddie. We've got to take our child and know our child, which we do because they're our pupil, you're their parents, you know them better than we do. Between the 3 of us, you, me, 2 parents, myself, we know this child really well. I then advise you on schools that I feel would be a good fit for that child. So instead of trying to contort the child into fitting into the school, we find the school that we know will fit the child. And there are going to be plenty of them. There are over 500 good independent boarding schools in the United Kingdom. There's going to be one that fits. So what we do is we take one that's maybe an ambitious try. Maybe we're pushing our luck a bit. Maybe we're really, really revving for that one. I would suggest 2 or 3 middle order where your child really should get in and will do very well. And then we will maybe have a school where we absolutely know there is no reason for them not to get in. The temptation is to think that that means a really good school, some middle schools, and a bad school. Well, that's just rubbish. They're all great schools. But in terms of your child, it's an ambitious try. It's a reasonable try. It's a pretty safe try, but they're all great schools. And for another child, 20 minutes later, I'll be meeting other parents. I'm going to have a completely different order. It could be the same school stacked a different way because we're talking about a different child. That's the key.
Great, thank you so much. I'd like to invite Vivian to summarize the answers in questions in Mandarin, please. Thank you.
OK，thank you 啊。我们刚刚第一个问题呢，就是很多有女孩子的家长就问到，如果我的孩子就读于香港威亚学校，那么是否意味着他进入威亚公学英国技术学校的那个对他的机会会更高呢？因为他是来自姊妹的学校嘛，而且课程也是很合适的。那么我们了解到，进入英国的顶尖技术学校的竞争是非常激烈的，而且是没有任何保证的。那Mr. Howard Tuckett 他是怎么样是回应这个问题的呢？那他刚刚是说到了，其实呢，女孩子都是非常厉害的。在过去我们3年的运营当中呢，我们有3个的女孩子已经赢得了英国威亚公学的这个名额。那当然，对于这些英国的技术学校来说呢，其实好的学校是非常多的啊。大概可能有5000个学校都是非常好。那么我们因为每一个孩子呢，其实他们都不一样，我们不能说这个学校是最好的，这些学校是中等的，这是最差的，他们都是非常好的学校。那当然我们是根据我们对孩子的这个认知，为我们的孩子做出这个最好的学校的一个选择当然我们在香港威亚学校，我们的女学生正在接受的这个课程呢，也是由英国教育系统培训的教师去准备的跟英国的预科学校的学生呢是完全一样的。所以的话呢，相信我们在我们学校的这些孩子，他们已经是在为进入类似于英国威亚公学学校的高入学标准的这些学校，他们已经做好了充分的准备。OK， 好，那我的这个总结去到这里接下来交给 Jennifer， 我们去第2个提问，谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. Moving on to the second question, Howard. Wycombe Abbey, Hong Kong, it is quite unique where the school prepares its students for high schools in the UK, US, and also local international schools going into secondary. Yep. In fact, within Wycombe Abbey, Hong Kong, I understand that there is a very strong boarding school and college counseling service for families that is already included, which is already part of the school fees for the child who's enrolled with the school. So can you tell us more about this service and how Wycombe Abbey School Hong Kong works with families who intend to send their children to study abroad in the UK? Please share some examples from your graduated student cohort this year.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Jennifer. So the situation is that by virtue of the fact that a pupil is at this school, they are already being prepared for these great schools because our curriculum is designed to feed into those schools. The question is, do you wish to take up that option, parents, or do you just wish your child to stay in Hong Kong, or possibly your career, like many of our parents at the moment? Suddenly, I've got parents here who are being moved to Portugal. And I'm talking to 2 Portuguese schools at the moment and finding out what their requirements are. And it's easy. Headmasters and head teachers, we're head teachers. We just talk to each other. What do you need? How do you need the child to be prepared? And we do it. So our main flow is to British boarding schools, but it can be to anywhere. We were dealing with schools in Florida last year, Norway, wherever people's careers take them. So let's not sort of limit our thinking just to British boarding schools, although that's what we mostly do. Once we know that it's all about communication, so although your child is being prepared for such an education, if you want it, You don't have to pay any more. It's all part of the fees. The advisory service to parents, the help, me talking to the registrars in those schools, introducing you to those schools, those registrars, particularly if parents aren't English first language themselves, it can be quite a daunting thing. All of these schools are ancient. Some of them are hundreds of years old. They've got all kinds of weird old sort of Harry Potter type traditions. It's easy for me, I can work my way through it. But for somebody coming to it for the first time as a parent, never been in education, in a completely different profession, it can be completely bewildering. And that's where I step in. I can't make the application for parents. Parents need to make their own applications to the school, but I can facilitate, I can phone up, I can make sure that nothing gets dropped, nothing gets misunderstood. Children can write assessments here. They don't need to go to some agency somewhere in Hong Kong. They can do it with us because I'll set it up with the school for you. As I say, there's the advisory thing. Jennifer was just asking about the pastoral side. We spend a lot, once we know that children are, or their parents are considering boarding, as well as preparing them academically and preparing them for their interviews and the competitive side. We have members of staff who work with them purely to talk to them what it's going to be like to be a young teenager in Britain, because it's really different to being a teenager in Hong Kong. It's cold, it's wet, it's grey. The sun doesn't come up for 3 or 4 months. It can be a bit depressing. You need to know about this stuff. If you're not ready for it, it's going to be wonderful and different, but you don't want to be so different that it becomes a bit of a culture shock. You'd like it to be a culture experience. And so our teachers talk through what it's going to be like to be a boarder. Yes, you're going to have to make your bed. So we actually have a bed upstairs. We practice making it. Yes, you're going to have to do your own laundry. And no, you're going to have to do your own. You're going to have to put your own laundry in the basket. And you're probably going to have to go to somewhere where there's a rack and take your new laundry off and put it in your cupboard. You're going to have to be looking after yourself. And don't worry, people who run the boarding schools, they know what they're doing. They've met hundreds of children who found this new and strange every year, and they will help you. And we talk about homesickness, not just for children. We talk about child sickness, like when you're missing your child, mum and dad, we'll still be here and you can come and talk to us. When a child's feeling homesick, some jolly lacrosse teacher or hockey teacher is going to come past and say, come along, and 5 minutes later, your child's going to be happy as Larry running around a field. Nobody's going to come along and sweep you up, mum. You're just going to be feeling bereft and sad at home, and there's nobody to make you feel better. And we talk about that and how that kind of situation, you're never going to avoid it, but we can deal with it and we can help you through it. And so basically the whole pastoral, supportive preparation before you go. And even when your child's gone, I still hear from parents whose children were with us. And sometimes if mum and dad are feeling a bit bereft, we have a phone call and we talk it through and just ensure things are going. It's actually very quick, short story. My wife, who's actually visiting Hong Kong here at the moment, works at Caterham School. She's one of the librarians there. And one of my ex-pupils from here is now a boarder at Caterham School. And he goes to see my wife occasionally, and if he's feeling a little bit down and lonely, and she can jolly him along. And she saw, of course, there's always week 3 in boarding. Week 3 is the week when reality hits. Yeah, everybody has to get through week 3, and all the staff know, and they're ready to catch the boarders. The newness, the uniqueness is over, and they suddenly realize, ooh, this is what it's going to be like for a while now. And week 3, everybody knows about that, and they're ready to catch. And it was lovely to hear from Colleen, my wife, how she was able to support one of my ex-pupils, particularly through week 3. And we stay in touch with them. And of course, I know a lot of the schools, and a lot of the heads, the registrars, and I do hear back about how my children are doing. And we get good feedback.
Okay, great. Great, thank you, Howard. Vivian, please do translate into Mandarin and quick summary.
Sorry, Vivian, that was a long answer.
Some parts.
Yes, just summarize the useful, the valuable information to our parents. OK， 我们刚才进行了，我们刚刚进行了第2个提问啊。我们问到的是，对于香港维亚学校来说呢，学校为学生准备英国、美国和当地国际学校的高中呢是非常独特的。那事实上，在英国维亚学校里面，我们了解到有非常强大的寄宿学校和大学的辅导服务。这些服务呢，已经是包含在孩子的学费当中了。你能够告诉我们更多关于这项服务的信息，以及香港维亚学校与一些家庭合作？那这些家庭呢，是打算把孩子送去英国留学的。也分享一下过去这些毕业学生当中的一些例子。Mr. Howard Tuckett 的回答是这样的。 其实呢，就是要家长要做好这个准备。我们的整个学校的课程呢是符合全部普通的这个入学的这个课程的要求，我们都为我们这些孩子做好最好的准备。无论你们的孩子以后想要去升学到哪里的学校，甚至是英国最好的独立的学校啊，我们都是已经做好准备了啊。无论你们申不申请，已经为你们的孩子准备好了。那一旦呢，我们知道每年你们会打算把孩子送到国外的寄宿学校的话呢，那么我们这些孩子呢，都会得到我们学校老师的一些支持啊。我们会跟孩子做好这个文化上面的一个过渡啊，做好从香港的生活到英国生活的一些这些转变，做好一些准备。我们会进行这个辅导的讨论，也会去讨论我们英国的文化，跟孩子们一起去讨论。而且呢，我们会单独的去为我们的这个学生做好一些为学校的这个入学的面试呢做好一些准备。那么这些呢都是在我们学校里面去完成的，而且呢要相信我们的这些授课的老师呢也是在与英国的学校的老师他们一样受过同样的一些培训。所以的话呢，如果有家庭说打算让他们的孩子进入英国的独立学校，那么呢也会为孩子做好这些入学的一些准备啊。虽然每个学校的可能不一样，但是我们会花很多的时间在这个技巧的这个学习方面另外的话呢，我们学校呢会跟澳大利亚、美国和欧洲的一些学校去合作我们做好准备，能够让我们的学生进入他们无论选择哪个学校OK 这是我们 Mr. Howard Tuckett 就是说了一些我们这些例子怎么样去为孩子做好一些准备了。OK 好，那我们 move on to 第三个我们接下来继续第三个的提问，谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. Very quick one, as we're very conscious of time. This is the last question for Mr. Tuckett here. A quick one. If I have a child that may be, a slow learner or falling behind, behind his or her peers in terms of abilities for certain tasks or subjects, what kind of support by the school that you can offer at Wycombe Abbey to ensure that the child, basically catches up and be able to get up to speed with the curriculum? Also, the second part of the question is, what attributes should parents look at to see if a school is the best fit for their child?
Thank you. Yeah, it's two quite different questions. So the short answer is yes, we have a special education needs, a learning support department, and we would never discriminate and not take a child. The only time that occasionally we're not able to offer a place is if the child's specific needs are beyond our capability to offer support. Again, it comes back to the moral decision. Can we expect this child to flourish? Special needs often by themselves are quite common, and we can deal and offer support for most of them. And so it always comes down to an individual decision. So if a child has, for some reason, had their sort of expected rate of progress slow down, if we feel we can help, we'll offer the place. But it wouldn't. My suggestion is come and have a look at the school first, have a tour, come and tell us. The critical thing, and it's very often something that parents are anxious about, is very often parents don't tell us everything at the beginning, and that really does just slow everything down. We really need to know the whole backstory, because then we can help. Most times we can help. If we find things out after the child has joined that we were never told at the beginning, that really can cause problems for you. Not for us, we're teachers, we're at work, but it can cause real problems for your child. So that's all I would say about that. But yes, we do have a department who can assist if it fits for the rest of the school. In terms of how to tell if a school would be a good fit for your child, I think confidence is the word here. As parents, be confident. You know your child. Don't be completely baffled by all the edu speak or the teacher speak you hear around schools. You're their parents. In your heart of hearts, you will know if this is a good fit for your child. Tips I would give when you go around a school: always go to a school. Websites are brilliant. Of course, mine is better than most, but they are only websites. It's a marketing exercise. It's going to show the school at its best. And you really need to come and smell the smell, hear the sounds, feel all the feet running around the school, feel the vibe. You need to get into a school. When you're walking around a school, don't watch the teachers. That's called performance. Watch what the children are doing. That's called learning. As you walk past a class, very often your eye is going to be drawn to the teacher who's at the front doing all this amazing stuff. Well, that's great. That's what they're meant to be doing. But what they're actually doing is getting children to engage. And sometimes the teachers aren't doing anything and it looks like a dull, dead lesson. But maybe we've just missed a really vibrant intro and now the children are getting in because they need to be active. If children are passive audience members, they're not learning very much. They're just being entertained, frankly. We might as well put them in front of the television. To learn, you need to do, not just listen and not just read by rote. So when you go around a school, look and see what are children doing. Are they actively involved, working with each other, problem solving, trying it this way, trying it that way, tinkering about whatever it is. It could be a sentence, it could be a computer, whatever it is, a constructor model or something, a robot, an art piece, a piece of drama, it could be a musical song they're trying to work on, whatever it is, they'll be grinding away, trying to make better, trying to deepen their understanding, deepen their performance, deepen their ability to get the thing right. That's what you're looking for in whatever format it is. If that's what's going on in the school, it's a good school. Whether it's the best school for your child, pick 2 or 3 good schools, and very often your child will know. Listen to them as well. In their heart of hearts, they know where they're going to be, which is a good fit for them. Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Howard, for the great advice there. I'll invite Vivian to translate question and answer a quick one into Mandarin, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 那我们刚刚第3个问题就是提问是，我们知道每个孩子的学习方式是不一样的，有时候学习的速度也不一样。如果一个孩子在某些任务或者是科目上面的能力方面，可能学习比较慢，或者是落后于同龄人，学校是不是有提供支持以帮助他们跟上这个进度呢？在您看来，父母应该看哪些属性来判断一个学校是否适合他们的孩子？您认为香港卫雅学校在香港其他历史当中悠久的国际学校当中怎么样是脱颖而出的？好 ，Mr. Howard 他给的回答是这样的，其实在香港卫雅学校呢，确实有一个专门的一个支持部门这个支持部门里面的老师呢是有一个支持的小组，那这个小组呢是给到老师教师一个建议，就是这些老师呢是非常好的能够帮助到任何可能有特定学习困难的这些学生，因为确实是每个孩子的学习可能开始时候都不顺，那么呢我们大部分呢都可以提供帮助的，特别是在不同课程的领域他们会暂时落后别人，那么我们的老师和这个支持部门是非常擅长确定什么时候能够发现我们这个孩子在学习方面具有挑战性，然后呢是在什么时候或者是怎么样去提供这个1对1的这个有意义的这个支持。对于这个问题，就是父母怎么样去根据孩子的一些学校的一些特性属性来判断这个学校是不是这个适合我们的孩子。那么比如说如果家长去到我们学校里面去参观，你去走一圈，你不要看这个学校里面的老师，你要把这个关注点要放在孩子身上。孩子到底学到了什么？孩子是否能够融入我们学校的这个学习？孩子是不是被激发到他学习的这个热情？那么我们的孩子只需要他学习他要做的事情，比如说我们要解决能力的问题，比如说我们学习在这个音乐当中，这个戏剧的这个当中，在他们享受的时候，他们能够学到东西。而且呢，他们是努力做得最好的。那这样的一个学校呢，就是有这些特性的一些学校呢，就是非常适合你们的孩子了。然后当然也说到我们香港卫雅学校呢，是真的是很适合大家来申请的。好，那以上呢就是我们刚刚Mr. Howard 的一个回答。好，那接下来我们把时间交给 Jennifer。
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Howard, for the wonderful presentation today. I want to wish you a great weekend and look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. If there are more questions coming from parents, we'll send it across to admissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to the third headmaster that we have today is Miss Renee Bowie from Bloom KKCA Academy, a very innovative and entrepreneurial school. I would like to invite Renee to share the slide. And Vivian, please do go ahead with the introduction in Mandarin first.
OK， 好，那我们接下来有第3间学校，就是百汇九江书院啊。百汇九江书院呢是一所提供英语英普双语教学的私立小学，学校用专题式的教学为主要的学习模式。课程的特色包括双语教学、每周实地考察、个性化小班教学及灵活分组，由教育家、企业家、工程师等等组成的资深教师团队。百汇九江书院致力于培育具有自信及国际视野的学生，并为他们建立扎实的中文基础和提倡学习中华文化。那今天我们非常荣幸邀请了梅可钦女士，我们的梅校长来为我们做分享。梅校长呢，致力于在香港提倡创新学习与创业的教育。梅院长呢，拥有哈佛大学的英语学士学位、剑桥大学的硕士学位以及港大的教育文凭。当他完成哈佛大学校长中期培训之后呢，就创办了我们这个百汇九江书院。好，接下来的时间我交给 Jennifer。Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. I'd like to make a quick introduction to Miss Renee Bowie, who is the founder and head of school for Bloom KKCA Academy. She has pioneered innovative learning and entrepreneurship education in Hong Kong when she founded Baker & Bloom in 2014, fostering creativity and helping K-12 students achieve personal growth and academic and admission success. 80% of the acceptance rate to Ivy League in 2022. She holds a bachelor's in English from Harvard University, an MPhil from the University of Cambridge, a PGDE from Hong Kong University. Before launching Bloom KKCA Academy, Ms. Renee Bowie completed training at Harvard's The Principal Center. Now I'd like to invite Ms. Renee to share her slides and start her presentation. Thank you, Renee.
Thanks very much, Jennifer, and thank you, Vivian, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to learn about some other schools in Hong Kong, and a lot of what has been said really resonates with me as well. And one of the beautiful things about Hong Kong, and I grew up here, is the diversity of schools that we have. So I'm excited to tell you a bit about why I founded this new school and also introduce some of its special features with you. The one thing I'd like to highlight in my background is that my husband and his sister, Theodore and Erica Ma, co-founded this entrepreneurship platform, an incubator called Cocoon, about 10 years ago. And then about 7 years ago, they built this S88 Foundation that focuses on entrepreneurship education. And I bring this up because unlike many other schools, the origins of our school is a little bit different. We are a homegrown school in Hong Kong, and we do have a program that's very international, but at the same time, we're very much dedicated to cultivating the next generation of Hong Kong leaders and young people whom we hope to be innovative and creative people. And the mission of Cocoon is also to reignite the entrepreneurial spirit of Hong Kong. And it was a lot of the work that I did with this entrepreneurship program, which is the largest in Hong Kong, funded by the Jockey Club. And we serve over 40 secondary schools, over 11,000 students in the past 4 years. And we also do teacher education. So through running that program, I began to see a new way to teach. And I also felt that there were a lot of challenges that over the years of the 2 decades teaching, I realized that are quite unique to Hong Kong, having grown up here and also become a parent here and taught in many schools here. I kind of had a front row view of some of these issues. I think they're very familiar and they're not totally unique to Hong Kong, but I do think they're worth mentioning because they have to do with the type of school that we've created. The first is a very exam-ridden system. A lot of students have to do tons of homework, even over weekends and holidays. And I found that even in schools that are international baccalaureate schools, there's a culture of tutoring, of very intense academics that add a lot of stress, which takes away from the joy of learning and the intrinsic motivation of students. So I think this is a huge problem, especially when we're trying to cultivate people who are creative and have this desire to learn throughout their lives. The second challenge, which I think all schools in Hong Kong try to address, is that we want to raise bilingual people, right? We are a city that historically East has met West, it's in our DNA. But it is not easy to become proficient in 2 languages to the degree that most parents would like their children to become, especially 2 languages that are quite different linguistically. And so that's a huge challenge. And very often, I think parents have to choose. They feel that the school choice highly impacts what type of language proficiency their children end up having. I myself went to a local school, then switched to an international school, then went to a boarding school. So kind of like, experience different systems. But I feel that schooling has changed a great deal in the past even 10 years in Hong Kong. And so this issue of how to teach Chinese and its importance has become, I think, quite a challenge. And then the last point, which our school directly addresses, is this growing gap between what schools teach and what employers and the job market and the field of work actually demands, and the opportunities that are present both now and in the future. So I think that gap is growing, which I think many people have alluded to. I think Ms. Tung in the beginning talked a bit about the World Economic Forum, OECD, and we've moved to the age of the 4th industrial revolution, right? Where the physical, the biological, the cyber come together. Money has become crypto. The kids are going to be probably living in the metaverse. Designers are designing things that are like the art that's like NFTs and all these things that are that feel quite removed from the reality that we're familiar with growing up. At the same time, while all these things are happening very quickly at a rate and a scale that is unprecedented, we also see education evolving and changing. Education seems to always be playing a catching game when it comes to learning what to do with technology and how to teach it and integrate it. But I think that we have, because of COVID partly, really moved to a stage where learners should be at the center. They should be creators and constructors of knowledge. And so the role of teachers have evolved. And we all know this, and in education, we talk about it a lot, but it's very hard for schools to actually execute this, largely because of the university admission system, which is still heavily exam-based, and marks, scores matter a lot. I do a lot of college admissions consulting, and that actually has exposed me the reality that universities do still care a lot about your transcript. And while there are test optional schools in the US growing, overall, by and large, it's still the grades that get you in. And as a result, there's this trickle-down effect all the way to kindergarten. So it's not easy to actually believe in what we know to be true and act upon it, which is to really put students at the center and not care so much about grades. So our report cards are very narrative. They're not about numbers. We certainly don't feel that you can reduce subject knowledge to a number. And so we use a lot of evidence, we give a lot of feedback, and parents can actually see what students are learning. We have a lot of sharing with our parents. I think in the beginning, Ms. Tong also talked about thinking about the future. So I want to make that very concrete for you. If you look at this list of jobs about, let's say, even 20 years, not even 30 years from now, I think this is a potential list. We don't know, but a potential list. Telesurgeons, machine personality designers, epigenetic counselors. The one I want to highlight is AI ethicists, which is a role that already exists in a lot of large tech companies, biotech companies in particular, and universities as well. And it's because a lot of the rules of our future world, even our current world, are written not by legislators alone, but by software engineers, people who are writing the algorithms that control what we buy, where we buy it from, what we watch on TV, what news we get. All of that coding is happening, decided upon by people who know how to code. And I question whether in a typical software engineer's education, moral philosophy is required, right? And I think that an understanding of history, when we think about what future we want to have, is very important. And so our school, while we're a bilingual school of innovation, and we care a lot about what the future will bring, we definitely emphasize the arts and the humanities, because these jobs, as you can see, are human-centric. The jobs that will probably not be replaced by technology and robots are the ones that serve humans and involve empathy, understanding, things where humans have an advantage. So we really believe that while we want our students to have strong STEM skills, and we have a phenomenal STEM program, we still want our kids to be humans, to understand human history, civilization, and culture. So the mission of our school is to cultivate compassionate creators and innovators. And we do this through 3 pillars. The first is well-being and character education. Think that physical health is very important. We have very long recess, a lot of time for play. We emphasize sports and getting enough sunlight. Right, we have weekly field trips, so that gives our kids time to go out in nature as well. And also social emotional learning. So we have campfire every morning, which is a time where we have an explicit curriculum for building character strengths, for learning how to meditate, kind of the rainbow breathing alluded to earlier, that type of thing. Very important before they begin their morning of academic learning. And at the end of the day, we have 15 minutes again of campfire. And there are many other aspects, but I would say we really bring together Eastern and Western core values, and we try to instill them in action through to our students. And then the second pillar is being a bilingual school. So I'll elaborate a bit on the curriculum, but it's really the spirit of exposing them to the world, helping them construct knowledge in 2 languages. And I think this is a very important skill because it develops a type of cognitive flexibility. It's not just the language skills that they benefit from, but really the ability to see the world from 2 lenses, both culturally and linguistically. And this also is related to being multicultural. So we have a very diverse staff, a diverse student body, social economically as well. We have financial aid and scholarships, which is very important to us. We're located also in an area in Hong Kong, in Shek Kip Mei, where we're very grounded and we have a very close tie to the neighborhood around us. So we're definitely a school that cultivates that understanding of Hong Kong itself, but we understand also the importance of a global mindset. And so we use the international primary curriculum as a way to underpin our interdisciplinary learning, our project-based learning, which brings me to the third pillar, which is collaborative innovation. So you can have STEM schools in Asia in particular, where kids are winning math Olympiads, science competitions, and they individually do very well. But in our school, we really understand that the future will require people with high emotional intelligence, social skills, the ability to make friends, get along with people. And you need to develop that from a very young age. It's not something you can, at the end, sort of do a booster course on. It's really the person you are that matters. And so how do you develop who you are? You do that through playing together, through working on projects together, through sharing knowledge, taking on different roles. So we really emphasize that part, which is why our mission is not just being creators and innovators, but people with compassion and a social mindset. And of course, all of this is undergirded, we are a school after all, by academic excellence. And I'll say a bit more about that. In terms of why our school, because we are a new school and we understand parents will have their questions. One thing that's unique is that we do offer both Mandarin and English, 50-50 equal amount of time. It's not a specialist subject, but a language of instruction, medium of instruction. So they learn science and math and they do projects in Chinese as well. Field trips also alternate between the 2 languages. We have this, at the heart of our school is this program called ECS, Explore, Create, Share. And it's a cross-curricular project-based learning approach where we explore different themes. And the third thing is that every Friday, our students go on field trips. So just this term, they've been to the Chinian nunnery, they've been to Space Museum, they've been to special art exhibitions, they've gone on farms and hikes. So really, they're out there. When we talk about taking down the walls, right, of the school, we really are taking them out there and seeing the city, the whole city, as our campus. And then the fourth feature of our school is that we offer personalized education through small class sizes and flexible grouping. So we don't stream students into different sets. I taught at St. Paul's Co-ed, which is a local school, and they have this method of differentiation that's quite rigid. They do differentiate, but it's quite rigid. So in contrast to that, we have a way of grouping kids based on themes, topics, and also different subjects. So the sets are flexible, and that allows children to move at their own pace. And the last, but certainly not least, special feature of our school is the staff. We are a school that's designed and built by educators, entrepreneurs, and engineers. And our staff bring a lot of industry expertise, which I will highlight in a moment, and just to introduce a few of them. To say one more word about the ECS program, we actually have a unique design cycle that we teach for every project, where we actually begin with exploration through field trips, through experiments, and research. And then they define and declare the problem they want to solve. They create prototypes in the makerspace using our 3D printers, using cardboard, using glue guns, making models, working with their hands, and also technology. And then they share at the end of every term. We have sharing days, and we bring in the parents, grandparents, and family. And then towards the end of the year, the final term, it's open to the public. And throughout, we teach them to reflect. That's a very important 21st century skill, because that's a way to encourage independent learning and to be more self-aware. This is based off of the Stanford School of Design's design thinking process, which is used throughout in many industries these days, but it's a process of problem solving that is applicable to many types of real world problems. As I mentioned, we are an IPC school, and the international primary curriculum really emphasizes international mindedness and global competence. So we have access to this whole bank of fantastic unit plans that really helps us with our curriculum planning. But I will say that the curriculum is tailor-made. I myself am very involved in it. Our STEM director, who's amazing, is also involved in it. All the teachers interpret the unit themes themselves, and we really, it's not a national curriculum of one place, but we bring together ideas and activities, performances from all over that we feel is relevant for that theme. For example, right after the fifth wave, we were going to do Hong Kong in the past as a theme. That was what was planned. But because there was a fifth wave, we ended up spending spring exploring the post-pandemic world. So the young kids in grade 1 and 2 looked at kindness, spreading kindness in the community, reconnecting with the community. The grade 3s and 4s looked at how the ecosystem was impacted by the pandemic, and they designed imaginary hybrid animals that would benefit the environment. And then the 5th and 6th graders looked at how the human species 100 years later, if still plagued by pandemics, could escape to Mars. And they read the novel The Martian. They looked at the science behind it. They built a Martian globe dome. They used aquaponics to learn how to grow things. It was really fantastic and very relevant. Throughout, we use many different teaching research-based teaching approaches, like visible thinking routines that help to structure the thinking process, because ultimately it's not just the content that matters, it's how you think, how you solve problems that is iterated, right, repeated in every project that they undertake. And so that becomes implicit, this whole cycle of learning, of problem solving. So they can then focus on the content, but they're developing really excellent thinking habits. So these are some examples. I mentioned a few, some others like Ocean Park, Reptile House. We talk about sustainability mindset all the time as a school, but what really matters, I think, is exposing kids to nature so that they know what they're supposed to sustain and love and protect. And they have a real relationship with these animals and plants and the flora and fauna of Hong Kong. Even like things like going to Wetland Park and Mai Po, Cup Noodle museums, really fun experiences that give a real world context to why it matters to learn ratios or like fractions or how to read a map. When you actually get to do geocaching, you want to read that map. So the field trips are really central to the experience of a Bloom student. These are 3 features I kind of mentioned already, but I will say that really every program, our Chinese program, our early childhood literacy program, all of that is carefully chosen, research-based, and we keep reviewing what is up to date in terms of neuroscience. We actually teach our students about the brain and neuroscience and metacognitive skills as well. And we have a learners hub where we have multisensory learning, and every class can book the room and learn through games, through play, and sensory toys, as well as other resources to encourage different forms of learning and to cater to different children. Our Chinese curriculum, we use Jianti. We use the 人教版语文 as our main text, which is the national textbook used in mainland China. We select the chapters that we use, but pretty much we follow that curriculum, and we add to it. So it's a part of the curriculum, but a big part is also what we add to it through the projects and through learning Chinese in through multiple subjects. We also have a Chinese as an additional language, Chinese as a foreign language grouping. So students with different abilities can be catered to and can access the content of what they're learning. We definitely use technology as well, but we also emphasize tradition in the sense of learning poetry, learning important canonical works as well. With math, we use the Singaporean math curriculum, and we also reference the US Common Core standards. Positive education is very important to us. As I mentioned, we have daily campfire where we teach character strengths. It's very important to remind kids about what these values actually mean. So if there's something that happens in the day, like conflict, at the end of the day, they actually get to go through it and say, do a replay. If we could do it again, how can we do it better? How can we communicate better? And I think explicit instruction is very important in terms of moral values. And it's really embedded even in, say, our English program. If we're studying biographies, we choose the people we study very carefully. We make sure they're role models in different ways and offer a diversity of people from around the world and different cultures, because inclusivity is one of our school values. I mentioned our amazing team, and these are three people that I just like to introduce to you. Miss Mei Chen, who's the head of our STEM and ECS program and teaches herself math and ECS, is a former NASA engineer. She worked at Lockheed Martin, and she's a graduate of UCLA and Carnegie Mellon. She's amazing because she has a lot of industry experience. And so, for example, right now, she's training up 40 of our kids to participate in Tencent's AI programming competition, which is regional. And we're the only school in Hong Kong representing Hong Kong as a primary school. And our kids are going through the whole design thinking process, designing apps. Yesterday, I just talked to a kid who designed a food panda app that he called Kid Panda for ordering lunches. And he really knows how to code it. He's working in a team with his peers. So May really spearheads our program and brings together cutting edge technology with application that's age appropriate. Ms. Erica Lee is our primary school coordinator, and one of the special background that she has is a forest school educator. She's qualified in the UK, and because we have, actually November is our forest school month, we have this program where we take kids outdoors and they learn entirely outdoors, all their subjects for a week with 3 nights overnight camp. This is a very important expertise to have on our staff. Pei Lin 老师, Li 老师, who's our 中文主任, she's the head of Chinese, and she herself just won her second poetry award, a national Taiwanese poetry competition. She's about to publish her first collection of poetry works, and really is someone who is so learned and knows so much about Chinese literature and modern poetry, which is what she writes. So all of that just to highlight the diversity of our staff and the passion and expertise that they bring. I will mention that earlier, I think Jennifer mentioned that I founded Baker & Bloom, and one of the things that we do there is independent college and boarding school admissions counseling. And we do have a strong track record. I know that we don't have a secondary school yet, but we're actually building that, and we hope to launch that next year. And of course, I understand parents are very worried about what's next, right? And I can say more about that later, but essentially, I want to reassure parents that we understand what these selective universities are looking for. And I'm happy to report that They care about all these things that I've been talking about. They care about creativity, about people having an idea of what they want to do with their lives, a sense of purpose, and then a portfolio of projects and independent work as evidence to prove that and to deepen that. So giving children that time and space so that when they get to the moment where they have to choose their majors, choose what they want to do, they have a clearer idea than most because they have had time to actually explore their interests creatively. And this is one very important tenet of our school. As slow as we must, as fast as we can. And this really captures the way we personalize education. Every child is different. They may be really fast when it comes to learning science and a little slower when it comes to literacy. And so our team, we have a learning support coordinator, and we also have usually more than 2 teachers in every classroom. So a very low student teacher ratio to really do push in, pull out work and support our children. We also allow children to skip grades. We have a very thorough process for that, including the school counselor's support, and both homeroom English and Chinese medium homeroom teachers have to support it. But we do allow kids to skip grades, or they can just advance in individual subjects. So that type of sliding scale is something that we're quite proud of. And the flexible grouping I mentioned earlier. So these are just some pictures of our school to give you a flavor of our school. We actually have our open day this coming Saturday, November 5th, from 1 to 4 p.m. So definitely come check us out if you have time. And in terms of application, we have rolling admissions. We have no debenture or capital levies, and we do offer scholarship and financial aid. Scholarships for academic, for music, for art, as well as for sports. So it's really important to us that we have this diversity, and we're a school that is accessible for people from all walks of life. And we already have over 25% of our students receiving some form of scholarship or financial aid. And that's something I think that really adds to the experience and enriches everyone's understanding and learning as they progress through the early years of education. So as I said, we have this open day coming up, and we have so many different workshops for young people from K3 through grade 6, so that they can get a taste of what it's like to learn in our makerspace, in our food tech lab, doing robotics, and all the fun and exciting ways in which we teach. So that's the end of my sharing, and I'm very happy to take some questions.
Thank you very much, Renee. That was I can feel the passion and the energy coming out from your presentation. Thank you for that. That was very insightful and amazing campus. Congratulations again with the school. And so now we can move on to Q&A. As just like before, Vivian will then translate the questions and answers into Mandarin after we have completed here. So the first question, moving on. For Bloom Academy, what stood out to me when I look at the school is the sense of community, forward thinking, and its unique program that is self-designed by a group of passionate educators who want to change the way children learn and how they prepare for the future, which I think you've coined the word future-wise education. The emphasis of care, act, and think seems to be the theme. If you were to name 3 strengths or attributes that sets Bloom apart from other more established international schools in Hong Kong, what would they be?
I can't take credit for the word future-wise, which comes from Professor David Perkins, who wrote a book called Future-Wise. Yeah. I just love the term. I think it's such a resonant term. So I've kind of stolen it, but I definitely want to credit David Perkins. So I think the magic is always in the details, right? And buzzwords all sound the same in every field. But at our school, we really give time to the 21st century skills. And our curriculum is designed by industry experts and educators who are given this freedom to think about what will matter in the future, what skills and knowledge will endure. So the 3 strengths that I would highlight would be the first, as I mentioned, the personalized care, attention, and the collaborative learning. I think, like in medicine, my dad's a doctor, this is the age of personalization. And so in addition to the small classes and flexible grouping and learner support, we actually also use a lot of adaptive technology for continuous assessment. And we also allow students to skip grades, right, as I said, and move in terms of an individual subject to the appropriate level of challenge. And at the same time, it's just our culture, which emphasizes social emotional skills, so that we really are teaching kids how to collaborate collaborate, how to play different roles, and manage a project in a smart way. I will give a very quick example. Yesterday, one of the teachers took out some students who were not behaving in a friendly way in recess. And instead of what maybe in some schools they would do, like deny them recess, okay, no recess for you because you're not playing kindly, the teacher actually took 4 students aside and taught them an African board game and taught them how to take turns. And she was like, actually, they were pretty sore losers. And it was an opportunity to actually teach them how to win more gracefully or lose more graciously and gracefully. And so, it's in these little moments that we can actually teach, and our teachers really are so dedicated. And even if it's their own lunchtime or their own free time, they will give it to the students because they really care about each individual student. The second point feature would be our daily bilingual project-based learning. So I think a lot of schools have project maybe at the end of a unit as a summative assessment, but for us, it's learning through projects and also in both Chinese and English. So the IPC curriculum actually covers 9 subjects ranging from ICT to geography and history, and we do Chinese ECS. So we're actually teaching IPC in Chinese. And so I think that's preparing them to work and live and use 2 languages in multiple subjects, even the design thinking process. So I think that's quite different. The creativity and critical thinking and problem solving skills in both languages that are developed. And then the third strength I would say would be our weekly field trips. I think that certainly would be what the students would vote for as their favorite part of school, because I think field trips offer that exposure, the dialogue, case studies, simulations, not even guest speakers, but direct interaction with experts, a full body immersion in the real world. And it's super fun. So I think brain science already tells us that joyful learning is the learning that sticks. It promotes motivation, confidence, and the long-term retention of learning. So I think that these 3 things, the personalization and collaborative learning, the bilingual project-based approach, and the weekly field trips set us apart.
Great, totally agree. I'd like to invite Vivian to translate, please, into Mandarin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 刚刚我们进行了第一个问题，题目是当我们看到这个百汇九江书院的时候，印象最深刻的就是这个社区的意识，前瞻性的思维以及独特的项目，由一群非常热情的教育工作者自行设计。他们希望改变孩子的学习方式，并且为未来做好准备，也成为这个未来的教育。对关怀、行动和思考的强调，似乎就是我们的主题。那如果让您说出3个能让百汇九江书院与香港其他更成熟的国际学校不同的优势，他们会是什么呢？梅校长的回答是这样的。其实这个未来教育是另外从书本里面来的一个概念。那我们说魔法呢，总是在细节当中，流行语听起来其实都是一样，但是我们为21世纪的技能留出了时间。我们的课程呢是由行业专家和教育工作者来设计的，他们可以自由的深入思考哪些技能和知识会将持续存在，并且对未来的工作和生活是产生影响的。因此的话呢，百汇九江书院的学生能够蓬勃发展，他们有3个优势。第一个呢就是个性化的关怀和协作的学习，就像医学一样，这是一个个性化的时代，所以除了小班教学、灵活的分组学习者的知识，使用自适应技术进行持续的评估之外呢，我们还允许学生去跳级或者是转移到针对他适当的挑战的特定主题的不同的课程里面去学习。那同时的话呢，我们是非常强调这个社交情商教育技能的学习。因此的话，我们教学生的时候，教他们如何去协作，扮演不同的角色，以及以聪明的方式去管理这个项目。那我们的教师都非常的付出，他们都很关怀学生。第二个呢，就是我们的每天双语的项目学习。很多学校他们甚至那些双语的学校，他们只用英语来做项目。但是的话呢，如果我们要让我们的学生更为使用2种语言在他们的生活和工作当中做好准备的话呢，其实是需要他们精通多个学科的。 那我们有一个课程是让学生去了解学习的原因，并且让他们参与这个设计思维的过程，他们在建构知识，而不是被动的去接受它。我们用2种语言同时进行，普通话和英语，来促进学生的这个创造力、批判性的思维和解决问题的能力。那第3个呢，相对就是很多孩子都非常喜欢的一个科目，就是我们的每周5的实地考察。而实地考察呢，会提供接触、对话、案例分析、模拟，是全身心的沉浸在我们现实当中。刚刚也说到，就是城市就是我们的校园，这是非常非常好玩的。脑科学也是告诉我们，快乐的学习呢，可以促进学习的动力、信心和长期的保留我们学习的热情。好，那么接下来我们进行第2个问题的提问，谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. Hi, Renee. Moving on to the second question. I understand that Bloom is not the traditional kind of school. Innovative methods like experiential learning and real-life case studies are used to teach traditional subjects starting from an early age. Is the school's curriculum mostly STEM heavy, or is there a balance between the sciences and the arts? What if my child is not strong in the sciences? How does the school support the child? And can you walk us through a day in the life of a primary 1 child?
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Vivian, for that wonderful translation. So I think I mentioned this when I was looking at the sharing with the jobs of the future, but I think that the need for the arts is paramount for human progress. I mean, I'm a literature major. I love culture, art, literature, books, but I think from media arts to moral philosophy, from like design to history, we simply cannot ensure a positive future through STEM alone. And in fact, I think without the guidance of humanities and the culture of the arts, a tech-driven future could look quite grim and even inequitable. So I think at Bloom, we definitely pay attention to how we balance the STEM subjects and the arts, and also how we balance East and West and the past and the future. And in terms of your question about like a child who might be afraid for these subjects, how can we cultivate STEM skills for them? Well, I think we have to make it so enjoyable that they don't even know they're learning STEM. So we approach it through, for example, themes and topics instead of like chemistry and the periodic table. So for example, we are studying the global trade of chocolate, the rise and fall of ancient cities, the design of a vertical garden. And kids are through that learning physics, chemistry, biology, environmental science, and they're given guidance as well as choice in how they use the STEM skills to create meaningful projects. Actually, they built the vertical garden at our school. And so for those who can go far, they can soar. And for those who are just beginners, they can go at their own speed and have teacher support. In terms of walking through a day, for grade 1 students, actually like all the other students, they begin their day with 25 minutes of campfire every Friday. Like today, it's a whole school campfire where, for example, today we had Box of Hope. One of the organizers come to share with the whole school. And during regular campfire, we basically help to center the kids before they start their academic learning. We cultivate the social emotional skills and teach them our school values. And then in the morning, when the brain's all fresh, they learn English, math, and Chinese, the core subjects, before they have lunch and their creative program of STEM, project-based learning, PE, music, field trips. And then on Thursdays, we have half days, and then they have 2 enrichment activities where they can choose from chess, coding, wushu to robotics. So lots of things to choose from. And then they have a short campfire at the end of the day where they gather to reflect, to consolidate, and close the day together. And we do have home learning. We call home learning instead of homework, which is also differentiated based on what your grouping is focused on. And but we don't have that over weekends or holidays. So my son actually just entered primary 1, and I can testify that he has been loving Bloom.
Wow, amazing, wonderful. Yes, I'd like to invite Vivian, please, the translation in Mandarin. Thank you.
好，刚刚我们进行第2个问题，提问是我们知道百汇九江书院不是传统的学校，从小呢就是使用这个体验式的学习和现实生活案例进行研究等这些创新的方法去传授我们的这个传统的科目。那学校的课程主要是 STEM， 主要是 STEM 呢，还是在科学和艺术之间取得平衡呢？如果我的孩子在科学方面不强是怎么办呢？学校如何去支持孩子呢？你能够带我们在一个小学1年级的孩子的教室里面度过一天吗？梅校长的回答是其实呢，对艺术的需求呢是人类进步的重中之重啊。他本身也是非常喜欢这个艺术和历史啊，从媒体艺术到道德的哲学，从设计到历史。我们其实是没办法仅仅通过 STEM 来发展呢，来确保未来是积极的。事实上呢，如果没有人文和艺术文化的这些引导，那科技驱动的未来只可能看起来是比较的严峻和也是不公平的。在百汇九江书院，我们绝对是平衡了我们 STEM 和艺术东方和西方过去和未来的这个平衡。那我们对于那些在非常害怕这些学科的学生，我们怎么样去培养他们呢？其实呢，我们把这个课程变得非常非常的有趣，他们甚至都不知道自己正在学习 STEM。我们会通过比如说全球巧克力的贸易啊、古城的兴衰啊、设计一个垂直花园等等这些主题来接近这个教育，让孩子们能够在其中呢能够学习物理、化学和环境科学。他们在如何使用 STEM 技能来创建有意义的项目和产品方面呢，是获得我们的指导和做出选择。这样的话呢，那些能够走得很快的孩子，他们可以腾飞；当然那些初学者呢，可以在老师的支持下，按照他们自己的速度再慢慢前进。1年级的学生呢，跟其他的学生一样，每天早晨呢用有25分钟的这个萤火会来开始。在他们开始学术的学习之前，我们是会帮助他们集中他们的注意力。我们有在早上的时候会培养这个社交情商教育的技能、个人的优势，并且呢向他们传授我们学校的价值观。早上趁着他们精神饱满，他们会先学习英语、数学和中文，然后在下午呢进行 STEM 项目式的学习，体育、音乐、实地考察，还有一些非常充实的创意课程，比如说编程、武术等等。那我们有很长的休息时间，让学生能够玩耍，并且是建立友谊。每天结束的时候呢，他们会有一个非常简短的篝火晚会，让他们聚在一起反思、巩固和结束这一天。那我们是确实有家庭在学习的，这是有区别的。但呢，家庭学习，就是在家学习，但不是在周末和节假日的时间。那实际上梅校长他自己的儿子也在上小学1年级，所以呢他可以证明他的儿子是非常非常喜欢我们这个百汇九江书院。 OK， 好，我们接下来进行第3个问题的提问，谢谢。
Great, thank you very much, Vivian. And moving on to the final question, I know we're very conscious of time here. I'm sure a lot of parents would like to know what my child will be accredited or prepped for. Is it IB? Is it GCSE, DSE, UK or US accreditations when he or she graduates from primary school at Bloom? What are the plans? You mentioned earlier secondary school will be open next year. If the schools if the students are able to transfer, can they transfer smoothly into other high schools as well in Hong Kong, UK or US? Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yes, we are working to launch secondary very soon. Hopefully by this time next year, we will have a secondary. And I dare say it'll look different from any other secondary school in Hong Kong. I think I mentioned in the beginning, I'm actually a secondary educator. So from the start, the vision of Bloom always involved entrepreneurship education, internships, and applied learning, all of which will be a big part of our secondary program. We're an IPC primary school, and in grades 7 and 8, we will adopt the IMYC, the International Middle Years Curriculum. And for grade 9 and 10, we will use IGCSE. Grade 11 and 12, we will adopt the A levels, the UK qualification accreditation, as our ICSID qualification. And A levels allows our students to access universities in over 90 countries across the world. I can get into why we chose A levels over IB, but I will just say very quickly that it gives us a bit more room to innovate in terms of it allows our students to gain depth and gives us extra room, because in addition to this academic curriculum, Bloom will be marrying this academic with the 21st century vocational learning. And we want to develop future-oriented literacies through STEM pathways, research opportunities, continuing our interdisciplinary projects, which we call missions. We will have work apprenticeships, both local and global partnerships. So that part takes a lot of time, and A-levels gives us that time. Our primary school has Hong Kong EDB registration already. So like any other licensed school in Hong Kong, our curriculum is validated by the education department, and students can apply to any other schools in Hong Kong or abroad. And for now, students that have studied with us have successfully entered international schools, such as Kellett, Singapore International School, and Harrow International School, as well as overseas schools, including IB schools. So I think this is a testament to the quality of our academics and of our students.
Great, excellent. And Vivian, please do the translation. Thank you.
Thank you。我们刚刚进行了第3个提问啊，问题是我们相信很多家长都知道，我的孩子在百汇九江书院小学毕业之后呢，会获得哪一些认证或者是准备，比如说 IB、KKCA、DSE 美国和英国的认证，有没有为百汇九江书院开设中学的计划呢？如果没有的话，学生能否顺利进入香港、英国、美国或者澳大利亚的其他高中？好，我们的回答是，其实是正在努力尽快的开办中学，它看起来应该是跟香港任何其他中学都不一样的。事实上，因为 Rainy，我们的校长他是一名中学教育工作者，从一开始的时候，百汇九江书院的愿景就是一直涉及到创业教育、实习和应用学习，所有的这些都将成为我们中学课程的重要组成部分。那我们小学使用国际小学的课程 IPC， 那我们7年级到8年级是采用国际中学课程 IMYC， 对于9年级和10年级呢，将会使用 IGCSE。在11年级到12年级，我们采用是 A-levels 英国认证作为我们的结业资格。那这些呢，能够使我们的学生能够进入全球90多个国家和地区的大学。除了这些学术的课程之外呢，百汇九江书院还将学术与21世纪的职业学习结合起来。我们将会通过 STEM 的途径研究机会、跨学科的项目、工作学徒、本地和全球合作伙伴关系发展面向未来的这些素养。那我们的小学是拥有香港教育局注册，因此的话呢，与香港任何其他持牌的学校一样，我们的课程呢是由教育局验证的。学生呢可以申请本地或者是国外的任何其他学校。目前和我们一起学习的这些学生已经成功进入了例如凯利特国际学校、新加坡国际学校、哈罗国际学校等国际学校，以及包括 IB 的学校在内的海外的学校。这足以证明我们的学术和学生的素养。OK， 非常感谢3间学校的校长的详细介绍和我们的详细的回答。今天呢，我们第一部分到这里。Jennifer。
Thank you very much. Thank you, Renee, for the wonderful presentation. I'm already feeling inspired entrepreneurship and innovation already just by listening to you. So have a great weekend. And thank you, Renee, once again for joining us from Bloom KKCA Academy. We will be in touch if we have more questions coming from the parents. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. So I will pass it back to Vivian, who will introduce our immigration consultant. Thank you.
OK， 好 ，Thank you, Jennifer。那么接下来呢是我们讲座的最后一个环节。那根据以往的经验呢，有很多家长其实比较关心来香港读书签证怎么样去解决。那么我们今天请来了移民咨询机构信德堡移民专家，今天会由 Tommy Lai 我们的黎先生来介绍。黎先生呢，他是毕业于香港大学，是移民及财税策划专家，现在呢也是信德堡移民专家的区域业务总监。那么接下来的时间有请我们的黎先生，谢谢。
好，你好，大家好，听到吗？可以啊，因为时间的关系，所以我会快一点来介绍一下。可以在下一版了。这是我们公司的创办人陈小姐，她也是在内地很有关系，所以她很了解内地的朋友申请过来的时候在操作这一块。我不多介绍了，下一版。对，这是刚才主持也是介绍了我现在是保德信移民专家公司的一个区域的业务总监，也是主要处理很多内地的客人过来香港申请移民到香港去的。下一版，好，再下一版了。我想我们的公司最主要的优势就是我们有3位入境区前入境区的高官跟这个督察，因为他们帮助我们处理很多疑难杂症，在申请的时候他们可以 帮助我们在撰写这个计划书跟这个来香港的时候，比如说有一些不同的情况下去给客人一些意见，还是在计划书配合客人的背景来处理很多不同的申请。我们在这一块的申请超过95%，也是成功这个成功率非常高。下一版，再下一版了。对这些殊荣了我也不太说了，因为在这几年的传媒也是给我们一些认同，所以我也在这里不太介绍太多。对这是也是传媒体的一些邀请我们的在奖项还是在不同的记录，可以下一版来看，就是不同的一些媒体官方的一些会议也是邀请我们去介绍这个移民这个现在操作的情况。好，下面可以再去这个也是为什么我们在处理这块，因为我们自己跟香港的入境区有一个沟通，因为我们有很多前入境区的专家，另外就是我们在处理这些申请的时候，因为我们是跟这个很多不同的，比如说一会说一些，比如说内地输入专才移民的时候我们也很多雇主是我们联系给我们的客户，可以更方便更自己拿到这个关系来跟他们谈这个聘他过来做这个工作的时候，申请工作签证的时候比较方便。对这事也是我们刚才说这些介绍我们的不同跟一般的代理不同的地方。对，好，这是2021年我们批出来的个案大部分也是专才优才，也是 ING， 就是一些年轻一点的客人申请过来读书，都读在大专跟这个大学的时候也是这个批出来的个案也是挺多的。对第一版呢我们主要说给客人听，因为从前我们有很多客户，因为最麻烦的地方他是找一些刚才说的代理，因为在这一块我们见到这个问题最大的问题是他们在第一次进入境区的时候他们入境区会问他很多问题，在问这个问题的时候他解答这些问题就发生一个很大的情况，因为入境区会根据他们大的情况来不断的在问一些不同的问题，所以在这一块我们很担心，就是如果有一些个案客人在处理这方面处理得不太好入境区发现有一些问题发生的时候，他们在批出来的时候就有一定的问题发生了。所以在这一部分我们是专家，可以说因为我们了解，就是我们有一些入境区的前入境区的官员跟这个officer， 他们也是非常有经验，了解入境区问的问题是从哪一个角度来处理这个申请的安排。好，那现在因为大家也知道香港也有一些新的政策，这是施政报告也是有说，但是这一块因为只是在这个方向的阶段，我们先从现在有的政策来跟大家介绍，现在可以有什么方法来香港申请身份来香港之后比如说家长拿到香港的身份之后，就可以带他们的小朋友过来读书这一块的操作。好，下一版那现在另外一个情况就是在中国内地，如果有申请出外国拿到这个签证是非常不容易这个最大的问题就是现在中国内地了，他现在内地的只是拿到中国护照的人除外比如说我们旅游跟工作也是非常困难，因为工作的签证也是批出来，也是现在这个调查在这个审查方面也是做得非常严格。但是我们另外一个方面发现，就是他们有很多内地的朋友他申请来香港拿身份，这一部分呢现在内地的操作就没有那么严格，就是只是看看这个 人因为内地的政府他不是要批这个操作，只是看这个出国的人他没有什么特别的原因，他就可以给他做因为做公证这一部分，在刚才我说申请这些签证是一定有的，但是来香港他不用做一定的比如说我们说的签证跟一些认证这些问题就解决了。对，就是刚才我说的这些公证的操作，来香港就不用做这些认证的操作，但是去外国这些认证跟批出来的认证的操作就非常严格。对，那这些也是遇到的一些问题，很多我们的客户问我们在处理申请海外到香港的一些问题的时候遇到的一些问题，所以我们也是每一天处理，就是为什么他们不能够成功申请了，不能够遇到的问题，我们在一般的跟他们解答的时候也是遇到这些问题发生。对，下一版。好，所以刚才说也是就算你有一个海外的护照，也不一定现在能够在内地出国，这是现在现况。所以我们经常说，就是香港是一个跳板，还是一个出路给一些如果是有兴趣先来香港，主要就是来香港，比如说带小朋友来读书，其次就是可以，另外就是进香港也是可以在去外国也是一个方法。好，说了，就是刚才说，就是可以用这个方法来处理这个申请的安排。好，那现在下一版，那现在有什么方法可以来香港呢？就是第一个最普遍的，就是输入内地人才计划，我们称它为专才，因为这个只要申请人就是一个18岁以上的人，他有一定的工作经验，最主要学历一定有一个我们叫本科，在内地叫本科的一个学历，包括他的工作经验，没有犯罪记录，我们就可以帮他找一个现在在香港找一个雇主来聘他过来但是这个我不一定就是你说就是内地人才，什么叫人才了？这一块就是要看这个客人在他的行业上是不是有一定的经验，还是有什么特别的一些我们说的一些比如说对这个行业上是有特别的贡献呢，还是什么意思？他有很非常好的一些表现，然后我们现在要会跟我们的客人会了解他的背景，根据他的学历，根据他的一路的做的事情来评估是不是怎么可以帮他安排来申请。因为这个最好的地方一会儿我会说这个优才的计划，另外一个计划是有配额，但是在最新的也是公报，可能是这个配额也是取消，但是这个专才的计划现在是比较弹性，这个 flexibility 比较大，所以我们一般有很多比如说他的工作不一定是现在优才需要的这一类，也是可以安排来香港申请。这个范围，这个工作的经验跟他的做的事情的宽道比较宽一点，所以我们可以帮助我们的客人在评估他的情况之下来帮他做这个申请。好，下一版。另外就是刚才我说优才原来是4000个配额在每一年但是现在这个施政报告也是有说，刚刚香港说出来就是已经没有这个配额，但是它也有一定的要求，比如说它是有2方面，一种就是评分最高的分数就是225分，一般从前大概有230到140分，130到140分的才能够有机会申请到，但是现在如果没有配额，可能有机会这个分数会比较低一点点，但是也要看香港现在需求的什么客人来支持，所以在这一部分是比较在申请方面是比较困难的空隙的。好，那另外就是读书如果是有一些家长他们也可以考虑，就是他可以到香港，比如说他从前是在内地大学毕业了 也是有一定的学历，他可以考虑到香港读一个 master， 还是较1年到2年的时间，他就可以再拿到这个工作签证。在这一部分，他过来的时候也是可以带同小朋友过来，所以也有一些家长他不一定打算来香港工作，在之前他只是读书，先读书再可以带小朋友过来，也是一个方法。但是这个部分也要看这个申请人他的背景等等，这个学历是不是能够在香港读这个学科能够配合。所以这一块我们也有专家跟他们了解，可不可以完成到这个申请这个安排。好，那企业家这一块就是在海外的人，一般海外住一段时间的华人来申请的。但是最主要他的申请的要求一定要在海外比如说我说的海外是在外国有一定的逗留的时间不能够也要以他们的身份，所以在这一部分我想今天不太对我们主要是内地的申请人来说不一定有用，但是如果他们也是有海外的身份的时候他可以考虑，因为这一部分只是开公司，不用找到雇主聘请，还是不用读书，也是可以做这个申请的。好刚才说了，这最主要大概的申请，比如说专才这个申请大概是6个月左右，因为在初步的申请，我们手记跟这些资料跟做这个评估，再撰写这个计划书，大概1到2个月，最后就是把这个资料整理好了，再撰写这个计划书，再交给入境处，大概他批出来，来往往大概2个月到3个月我们一般做的个案大概6个月之内一定会批出来，然后批出来之后，这个申请人就可以来香港做一个24个月的签证，就可以到入境处打指纹来拿这个身份证，但4年之后就可以拿到这个永居。但是他一拿到在申请的时候，他可以带同他的配偶跟孩子一并来申请，就是他就在这一块，就是可以带小朋友过来一并读书，就是这个操作。对，好的，那最后我就跟大家分享，就是在从前我们也有一个个案跟这个企业来合作的，因为这个林女士就是我们的客户，她是在内地是在有一个很丰富经验做这个美容跟这个化妆品的零售的行业。在2011年，他的11岁的孩子他为了打算就是这个孩子能够再来香港得到教育的安排，他就考虑移民到香港去。在这个时间就是2020年，他的孩子是2011年，所以到2020年大概小朋友是11岁，他就考虑2020年的时候就怎么安排呢？我们就帮他评估过他的背景之后，我们就安排他用这个输入人才计划、内地人才计划来香港。他原来的是一个中专的学历，应该不克服这个申请要求，因为我刚才说我们对低的要求要本科就是一个大学的学历，但是因为我们知道他在美容跟这个化妆品的零售这个行业是非常有经验，所以我们在这一块很快就找到一家香港有名的一个美妆的一个公司，聘他过来写他的经验来配合。虽然他的学历没有本科的，但是我们也可以跟入境处说他这个公司对这个人才的要求，所以在这个方面我们在2020年1月份在年初的时候提交申请，在6月份就是大概5个月左右就成功批出来了。最后我们也因为批出来之后他要带小朋友，因为在6月份批出来的时候时间非常紧的非常紧，因为你们也知道9月份开学了，就这个小朋友呢，我们第一时间我们公司找企业帮助这个小朋友呢找小学读书，就是在他们的协作之下，在1个月 就可以安排到他们入读了一个很好的小学。所以在这方面，我们 pick 就是实践来说，就是在有专家可以 pick 大家来申请来香港之后，在读书这一块一条龙的操作非常重要。对，好最后我也想说，就是在申请这一块一定要做好我们的评估，因为比如说有很多人就说，就是我就用优才还是什么方法来香港很容易，但是有时候如果你跟刚才我说了，就是跟入境处说了这个，在一开始在提供资料跟这个做这个申请的时候，你有一点点的问题给他们发现的时候，就发现很大的问题，因为他会在这些问题再卷下去，在这个 pick 出来的成功率就非常低了。所以我想每一次我都跟我们的客人跟一些查询我们的朋友说，就是要找专家，比如说我们是移民另外我们的科州法办在做这个学校的部分，也是帮助我们处理很多小朋友的操作。好，谢谢，我说的就是大概是这样。
好非常感谢黎先生的详尽的介绍，真的非常的用心哈。我相信大家都非常清晰怎么样移民来香港，那么找对我们的移民公司，移民是一点问题都没有哈。那今天也非常感谢3间学校的校长的分享和宝贵的资讯，也感谢我们启言伊比斯和 Whisper和 Whisper 的精心的安排。那么线上的家长如果对今天的2所学校有任何的3所学校有任何的疑问的话呢，可以联系我们PPT 现在上面的这个电话、邮箱和2维码都可以找到我们香港或者深圳的同事进行一个联系的，我们都会解答你的任何的问题。那么今天的讲座呢到此结束，感谢大家的参与接下来的话也请我们的 Jennifer 来补充一下，谢谢。
Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. Thank you to also the 3 schools who've joined, Hong Kong Academy, Wycombe Abbey, and also Bloom KKCA Academy. If anyone has any questions or parents with any questions, please do feel free to contact us and let us know. And thank you also to Protection, the immigration consultant, for his presentation. Thank you everyone for joining and have a great weekend. Thank you.